Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 333. It is almost spring. We'll be talking about that later. We look warmish right now, but I'm not sure how it's going to go over the next 2 hours. But we look okay now, I think.
For now.
Can't see our breath yet. The light is still out. We'll see what happens when the sun sets. We have a special returning guest, Ryan Venrick. How have you been?
Oh, jeez.
How have you been?
Good.
Good?
Busy.
Nothing new, right?
Not much.
Nothing new except for the project you brought in and a bunch of other stuff.
A bunch of other stuff I'm doing, yeah. So
life is good, I hope.
Life is good.
Good.
Life is good. Settling into we've been in our new house about almost a year now. So
awesome.
Yeah, life is good.
Welcome to the new studio.
It looks great.
Looks pretty much the same to everyone at home.
From my vantage point though,
yeah.
Big upgrade.
Thanks, man.
Big upgrade.
Thanks. Thank you very much. We're happy to be here. Happy to have you guys with us. I want to thank our sponsors, Watershed, for tonight, if you will. So we appreciate that. You see a couple of bottles that look somewhat familiar maybe to some of you that follow Watershed in front of Ryan there. But I also want to thank you guys out there that continue to support us. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast, and also one-time contributions through Venmo at Bourbon and BS. Appreciate it. StreamYard's added a bunch of features. That's what we're using to stream live to you guys. With that increases cost, but that's okay because we're very happy with the higher quality and everything else that they're offering right now. So we appreciate that. And we want to get some of the audio episodes out there as well. So we appreciate all your guys' support, keeping this thing going. So patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast or Venmo at Bourbon and BS. Appreciate that. I want to thank our sponsors also, Tinderbox at Easton. Tonight they are, it's actually one of our other sponsors, Altus, but Tinderbox at Easton is contributing tonight the Reserva Real Nicaragua Midnight Twist. And just because we've had some of your stuff on before and we're doing a different iteration, I figured we'd go with that theme.
Nice.
Altus USA is sponsoring us tonight with the second cigar along with continued support. This is the Romeo y Julieta Reserva Real Nicaragua. Period. Nothing after that. So we'll talk about that here as we get started. We're going to focus a little bit more on the spirit tonight with Watershed being here, so we appreciate that. That's something exciting. Also, BS Cigar Company, gold and silver are available. The gold is made by Plasencia and the silver is made by Espinosa. Those are available through Tinderbox. I believe at Carfania is in the area as well. Mm-hmm. And check it out, BS Cigar Company. You can check them out online. You can check them out on social media or just contact us or Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Get you some of those. Also, Nate's got the it's called because of the colors, Nicaragua colored.
This was not planned. I haven't worn this thing in months.
Sure.
It looks great.
I'm gonna bust out the blue one this time.
And here we are, Nicaragua colors here. The blue and white BS hoodie. It's available on buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. It's byjack.com Bourbon BS/Bourbon BS. And there's these hoodies on there. Not mine. I've got mine from our sponsor here. The Watershed one, available in your pro shop.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Pro shop.
Same thing. But yeah, buyjack.com/Bourbon BS. You can get these hoodies that Nate has on there. 3/4 sleeves, great for the spring weather coming up. And then t-shirts for both podcast and also for BS Cigar Company. So check that out, please. And grab those. They'll be shipped directly to you. Pick what size and just order them online there. Any questions or comments, just put them in the feed. We typically monitor the Facebook comments, but if you're on YouTube, we do try to click over and check that out as well. And if we don't see them during the show, we will see them afterwards. We'll try to get to you when we can see them. So check us out primarily on Facebook Live for the conversation. So we appreciate all that stuff. All right, let's go. Let's talk about this project that Ryan's been working on here.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm just going to put it up on the screen.
Yeah, so this is our nothing super new from us, just a new batch of our rye whiskey, straight rye whiskey. This year's batch is 8 years old. So our first two releases were 6. We let these ones go a little bit longer. So this is our 8-year barrel strength rye whiskey. So this project started back in 2016. They made just a few runs of rye whiskey that year. So we're still working off those batches and those barrels from that year. Super happy with this one. Turned out really, really well. Much different than the other two batches.
Yeah.
Much different. I'm excited for you guys to try it. Just a lot richer notes. I get a lot of it's super buttery and really toasty, and you get a lot of that rye toasted bread about it. So we'll see what you guys think. And,
Thank you for saying toasted bread because I get made fun of.
No, that's a real note. That's a real note for sure.
Steve did that on the show. He said toasted bread, and I went, "You mean toast?
You can toast other things like a toasted bagel or
Yeah.
Bread."
So I get it mostly on
It's
the
a bagel.
aroma. You can have a bready smell and it not be like a toasty smell.
Thank you. Yes.
So yeah, I got your back on that one.
No, but a toasted bagel, first of all, you're not going to say, "Hey, can I have a piece of toast?" And you're like, "Oh, you must have meant the bagel."
No,
Yeah,
I get that.
if there was two things, a bagel and a piece of bread, what would you have? One, the toast, and I'm just assuming. Jess is saying, yeah, she's probably right. Whatever.
Probably is. We'll
How
fight
different
about
is the smell
bread.
of a
We'll let
plain
them.
bagel and a piece of bread? Both
Depends what's on the bagel.
No, I said by themselves. Like you just toast it.
Your plain bagel or an everything bagel or like
Plain bagel, plain piece of white bread. Throw them both in a toaster for the same amount of time.
Well, hopefully you understand what the note is once you didn't smell it.
Yeah.
I think it's close to what
Let's
we're talking
continue
about.
down this train. No, just kidding.
And don't get me wrong, there are some things I do love. Like there are some wines, especially champagnes, where I love the yeasty. I like more of that yeasty,
Mhm.
bready note on those
Yeah.
than some of the ones that are more apple or fruit oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's definitely a grain note, but it's not like in a negative way. It's a matured toasty rye bread note.
All right, so the big difference I'm going to say, we got the two things, right? Previous two batches were 6 year.
Correct.
This is 8 year.
And this
and
is
you
8
have
years.
it boasted all over that front label,
Yes,
which
sir.
I think is great. So
Yeah.
it does not, I mean, it's not a surprise when you're looking at the label.
Absolutely. We wanted to make it big and bold on the front of the label. This is the single oldest whiskey to come out of Watershed Distillery. And we're really, really proud of that. So we wanted to show it off on the front label. We typically do an age statement on most of our products, but this one we wanted to make sure it was front and center.
yeah, that rye grain comes through on the nose big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the legs on that.
Well,
Look at
this-
the legs on that.
Look at the legs on that.
Yeah, this one's coming in at 129.2.
Yeah, just over 129.
From the last batch, wasn't that 145?
That was our hazmat. Yeah, that was a 145.4.
That was,
So
tasty.
back down to a respectable range.
I think,
But still
70-some
scratching-
percent
Yeah, still scratching that
respectable.
proof itch for those proof heads out there.
The first time I ever got invited to one of the influencer things at Watershed, I had someone, another influencer, call me a proof whore.
I've heard that term before. I like to be a little more eloquent with my verbiage. But
I was like, "What are you?"
Despair.
I was like, "No, I like that flavor profile the best."
Tony's inside going nuts. Poor child on a bike.
oh
Bye.
yeah, I mean buttered rye toast, if you will.
Butter. Toasted butter rye bread.
Toasted pumpernickel rye.
Even pumpernickel, huh?
Ooh, that floral spice on the very back. Wow, that jumps out at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one is super big, super bold. This might be my favorite of the 3 batches to date. Just with the amount of the flavor, just punches you right in the mouth.
Out right in the kisser.
Right in the kisser. It does have a finish there. I'm trying to place it. There, you said what kind of spice? Or would you say finish, Nate?
Floral spice.
Floral spice. So I'm trying to picture it because it's almost like one of those steak blends. If you guys, I know Nate, you probably don't use those, but like a steak blend of like spices, you know what I mean? Where it's got a lot of different things. You got like your typical, like, salt, little pepper, and then a little garlic, but then it's got like the dill and
Okay.
you know what I mean? Like the lemon peel in there a little bit. So like maybe a little bit of what you're talking about, but it's kind of, that's like the finish on it for me.
Yeah, I get the citrus on the finish for sure.
It's like a really deep that like there's a little bit of that eucalyptus that sometimes we get on ryes, but it's
Faint.
but there's this depth right in front of that note that I'm trying to place.
Ricola, lemon herb. Serious.
Close.
No. Something not as citrusy as that, but I mean something dark.
Yeah, it on our barrel strength stuff too. Typically, you get a lot of that sweetness up front, and this doesn't have that at all. It's more.
It doesn't.
I get more of that like deep leather, those tobacco leather, charred oak notes. Something else to mention too. This was not aged in a char 5 barrel that we are historically known for. This actually made it into a char 4.
Okay.
So a little bit lower char level.
And for those, like, what would that do to people to understand why that would make a difference?
Yeah. So the char level, basically, the higher the char number, the thicker that char layer is. So the thicker the char layer that you have inside your barrel, the more filtration you're going to get as the alcohol interacts in and out of the wood. So the lower char level means you're getting less filtration of those heavier congeners. It's going to extract deeper tannins out of the oak than normally would get caught in those thicker char layers. So you're getting a little bit more raw oak flavor and esters from the spirit itself instead of just a lot of those wood sugars and caramels and vanillas and stuff.
Okay. What makes this your favorite so far of the 3?
Just the richness of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so rich. And for me, the fun part with this was it's completely different than anything we've released before. I think this one has a level of depth that we've never released before. All of our stuff is fantastic from a biased point of view. But
Especially since you've been there.
yeah, right.
I mean-
Right. But this one, it doesn't scream that really sweet, the dark red fruit notes. This is more of like, it's toasty, it's bready, it's got a lot of spice to it, it's got depth. It's just got everything that I look for outside of the Watershed profile, I guess.
No, that's fine.
In a way to say it, it's just something different than.
You guys have evolved so quickly over the last several years. I mean, that's fair to say.
Absolutely, yeah. And these barrels that we're pulling from, like Greg is probably the only one still around that saw this juice go into these barrels. So
yeah,
it's something that's really cool for me to get to experience, like what they were making back in 2016 and how we're so much different now than the rye we're making today. Yeah, it's pretty exciting to, bring this spirit into the world.
So with this, can I see the
Yeah.
bottle there? I mean, does it have there's no bottle number on this, correct?
I don't believe so. There might be one on the back label. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so 151 out of what?
About 200.
200.
Yeah.
So for everyone at home, the difference, like with this, you're bringing out the barrel strength rye, and maybe I missed it when you said it, but so what's the mash bill one, and then where are you getting the 200?
Yeah, so the
It's
mash
8
bill,
years. So is this a blend? Is this something where you're taking several barrels, or is it all basically with it being barrel strength? It doesn't say single barrel, right?
Yeah, good question. So this is just one barrel. It was one barrel release. They only made 6 of these barrels back in 2016. So we've kind of been slowly trying to bleed them out until we get the rye mature that we're making today and last year and the year before that.
Is this coming from the same batch?
Yes. So
Okay.
all
The
3 batches
previous-
have been coming from the same lots, just at
it.
different ages and different proof points.
I missed that. I apologize.
Yeah. So mash bill is completely different than what we're doing now. So this mash bill was 57% rye, 36% corn, and then 7 malted barley.
Quite different than a lot of rye.
Very different. Yeah, very different. And I don't have a lot of data on, what the thought processes were. It's at this point, it's mostly like, hey, Greg, what were you thinking when you made this? And not in a negative way, just kind of trying to pick his brain. So that kind of, for me, adds to that mystique of how this product came about and how these flavors came about. Because like I said, now that you guys have tasted it, it's not like anything that has come out of Watershed before, in my opinion.
Not that I can recall.
Yeah, just the level of depth, the richness. It's not stereotypically like that sweet caramel bomb that all the barrel strength tends to have.
Ruined that signature there.
Oh, you ruined it?
No, I
Oh,
caught it.
geez.
I just ruined the pour.
So yeah, it's all coming from the same lot, completely different than what we're making now. And we still have a few left. So will we continue to release them as single barrels? I'm not sure, but
Well, I remember when we were gifted the first batch, and it was super hush hush. It was I think a smaller yield than that for some reason. I thought it was less than 200.
Yeah.
But there was this, and I think we might have talked about it last time or one of the times. There's still this like kind of won't they do a regular Watershed rye?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily barrel strength, not the limited release. And we'll talk about how you guys can get your hands on this also here coming up, what we can tell you. But I mean, it's something you can talk about? Is this something that Watershed is, you'll see basically, your 4-year blended bourbon, you see the bottled and bond. I liked seeing the uncut. I bought one of those not too long ago because it was on the shelf. And but as far as your regular portfolio, when it comes to whiskey, it's the 4-year blended, which was the revamped regular, Watershed bourbon.
Yep.
You have the bottle and bond. Are we going to see a Watershed rye at some point, or is it still kind of like, will we, won't we?
We will.
Okay.
One day we will see a core portfolio rye. With anything in the whiskey industry, it takes a lot of time to get a mature spirit out there.
Understood.
So we've been making rye for about 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting closer and closer, but we're still kind of in that weird space where it's still a little too young. I want it to go a little bit further. It's still got some growing up to do. So in the meantime, this is what this line is kind of doing for us. It's kind of carrying the weight until we get that shelfer out.
But now you have more space to put away more barrels.
Correct.
We found that out back in the fall when we were there for the fall finishing dinner.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we're going through a pretty big expansion over the next 3 to 5 years. As you guys saw, pretty big expansion.
Yeah.
We're really excited about.
It's massive.
So along with that comes new product lines, new product development. Unfortunately seeing some of these, these guys go away as we work through them.
Yeah.
So we got to enjoy them while they're here. It's an exciting time at Watershed. It's an exciting time to be
Got to pay
around
bills.
for the growth. Exactly. Something else I'll say about this bottle too, that is it just adds to that, that story. These barrels actually predate the barrel warehouse that we currently have. So
that makes sense.
So these were filled. Yeah. These were filled before we got the space you guys saw at that dinner. And so kind of the story I was telling about last year's release, I got a lot of questions like, how does it get that? Like, how does the proof jump that high? Like, how's that possible? My only theory, and you go and ask Greg, and he kind of has the same thought. Where we used to store barrels was in the same space as our boiler. So that room was just a constant 110, 115 degrees. So that is kind of my only theory.
It's a hot rick house.
Exactly.
Well, that expands the shit out of that barrel.
Yeah,
which gives
it's a
you
very,
more
very hot environment for those barrels.
It's like Kentucky.
The strange part is some of these other barrels didn't get nearly that high. So that just goes to show you like where the positioning is,
of it,
the temperature, the ventilation. There's a lot of factors when it comes to maturation. But yeah, this lot has been super fun to follow over the last 3 to 4 years. And even like I just pulled them out the other day, and the few barrels that we have left are drastically changing just month to month. So it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Any idea what the entry proof was on this?
The closest record I have is between there's a couple left that were filled at 120, some at 122, and some at 125.
Okay.
So on the upper end of our fill regulations. So that's kind of where we're sitting as far as what's left in there.
So are we to assume that the batch number 4 will have a longer age statement? I assume.
Maybe.
We'll
see. Yeah, it all depends on. So I harvest.
It's single barrel.
So I harvest based on flavor profile. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking for age statement. If it tastes good, I'm putting it in a bottle. So I pull these out probably quarterly right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if one of those barrels is ready, or if I want to blend a couple together and they're ready, they'll get harvested.
Nice.
So I can't guarantee that it'll be a 9-year next year. It's possible, but I can't guarantee.
Got it. Yeah, got it. Makes sense. All right, Nate. Any other thoughts on this? I mean, it's a unique taste.
It's a different
very.
beast.
I mean, it's And for being, 120,
129.2.
129, I mean, okay, call it almost 130 there, but it
So that's one of the
does
things.
it drink to the proof to you?
So I knew that's where you were getting. And that is one of the things I've always said about Watershed
Mhm.
single barrels is they punch below their proof.
In a good way, bad way?
Good way.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I mentioned your last batch of the 6-year rye, that was 145. Does not drink, or it did not drink.
Not even close.
It did not drink like 145.
Not even.
Thankfully, I actually had that fairly recently, so it's still kind of fresh in my mind comparing that to comparing this one. But I also remember I had one. It was a hazmat single barrel bourbon of yours. It was 142, and I poured that for some guys at the shop, and the closest anyone got was 120.
Yeah.
But the amount of cinnamon and spice that was on that, one guy described it as Willet pot still through a turbocharger, which that person loves Willet pot still. So they ended up loving that Watershed single barrel, and they couldn't believe it was Watershed until I showed them the bottle. And they're like, "Are you kidding me? Can I have some more?" And yeah, and then a few months later, I ended up gifting that person the rest of the bottle because I knew how much they liked it, and it was a busy day that day. So I was like, "Here, brought this for you." There's still like this has a lot more complexity to it than that 6-year. Like I said, I just had that recently. The bottle had been open, for a year, but still tasted like I remember. But then having that as recent, there are some similarities in the profile between these two. But yeah, this one has so much more complexity. The spice is a lot more intense on this one, which I think is interesting given that there's 16 proof points difference between the two. But yeah, there's a depth and richness to this one that was not there for the last release. And there's still that initial kind of flavor note on the back end that I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck that is.
I think you were talking about earlier. There was like a floral-esque note. I get the same thing, but I'm with you. I can't really put my finger on it. It's almost like
that finish and back
and I'm usually really good at picking that shit out.
Yeah,
good at picking shit.
I don't have a dog.
Sucks. Just kidding.
You love Tony.
Once again, this is Tony's house. We just live in it. I don't know, that finish it's very good.
Yes.
It's unique. It is tough to place.
Like there's stuff there that
I feel like it's going to turn on me. There's like it almost like a yeast, you know what I mean? Like, but it doesn't go there. I don't know. Like it's got a little lingering punch to it, but it's not like this. And I don't get for the proof. I don't get it down in my chest or anything.
Yeah, I agree.
It kind of just hits, flavor. You get.
Where's that Ohio embrace?
Same.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really get that hug that Nate's talking about.
No.
It definitely stays in the upper part of the olfactories and kind of in the back of the palate. But I don't mind that personally.
Your tongue tingles like 30 seconds later. Still.
Yeah, it's got a very unique long finish.
All right. Well, we sip on that some more. Let's talk about this cigar here. This is Romeo y Julieta. This is the Reserva Real Nicaragua Midnight Twist. So this is a tweaked blend. I'll get to that. Okay. Chris Rickle. I'm sorry, Chris. I just want to talk about the cigar before we get too far, much further into the whiskey. Some of the questions. Great question, Chris.
Great question.
Want to get to it for sure. And we're also going to get to what you can do and how you can get this bottle. But I do want to talk about the cigar here from Tinderbox at Easton and Altadis USA here. This is going to be the Romeo y Julieta, like I said, Reserva Real Nicaragua Midnight Twist. The original Reserva Real Nicaragua was something that they added to the portfolio, I believe it was in 2019. And this was going to be Something coming from AJ Fernandez. So Altadis was starting really to get heavy in with AJ Fernandez, and he kind of did a rapid fire releases with them, if you remember, Nate, where it was the Monte Cristo Nicaragua series with the black label. That was an AJ blend.
Mhm.
You had this one coming out. You had the Trinidad Espiritu #1 coming out,
Mhm.
and there might have been another one. Maybe
Was there
H. Upman Nicaragua? I think was around that time. I think you're right.
yeah, because the Heritage came out later.
Heritage later followed, but I mean, this was like they had like 3 or 4 Altadis blends that are all AJ Fernandez.
They're also when they're also in Ahoya. That's not them.
That's not them.
That's it.
So this was the year that, if I'm not mistaken, the Aging Room Nicaragua, which is also made by AJ Fernandez and Rafael there. That's when like all these came out. And I remember at the time, I'm like, okay, you're releasing 3, maybe 4 medium-bodied, all Nicaraguan cigars with not a whole lot of information behind it. And it was kind of like smoking them, not necessarily back to back, but smoking them as they were, coming out. You're just like, okay, how's it different? Like, how are these different, right? And I think that they had some differences, but it was almost like at the time I'm thinking like, okay, so he just made kind of like that Cuban, rumor where it's like, okay, you made the same cigar and slapped 3 different labels on it and just were like, here you go,
Oh, like Rocky.
But I don't think that's the case with this, because I've come back and smoked the Reserva Real Nicaragua. We also still at Tinderbox Edition, we carry the Monte Cristo Nicaragua series, the Trinidad Espiritu #1. I think there are some differences here. The Reserva Real Nicaragua Midnight Twist, basically they are, I think, showcasing how you can have some differences by just changing little parts of a blend. And from what I understand, talking to the rep, not much has changed other than doing your normal wrapper leaf that you guys see in front of you, because that's our second cigar, is the Romeo Reserva Real Nicaragua. And they added a second wrapper to it. And so it's going to have
Is it a full-on double wrapper?
as far as I know, it is.
Okay, so it's not just a pinstripe.
I don't think it's a pinstripe.
Like what LFD did with the Mysterioso.
It might be. Regardless, as you smoke it, you're still going to get the flavor of both. I think I think it is a pinstripe. I think it is a pinstripe. But what they're showcasing there is, as you smoke it, and sometimes people get kind of like thrown off a little bit, but I mean, you're smoking both wrappers the entire time, just at different ratios.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you mean?
I'm not so I've had cigars where it's been double wrap.
Yeah.
So the CAO America, that was a double wrap offset, had that same pinstripe kind of look to it, just inverse the colors. And then you had some like the LFD where it was literally just that thin strip cut and put on there. And I sit there and I'm like, well, that's not smoking 2 different wrappers. That's smoking 1 wrapper and then adding just this, like this. When you look at the diameter, or when you look at the circumference of this cigar, and then how much of that is made up by that little pinstripe at any given time. I mean, it's a very small.
It is smaller, but I will say you're burning both.
Yeah,
I think your pinstripe's thicker than mine.
Well, thank you.
Bazinga.
Mine actually does, and this is totally natural. That's what my doctor says. But see how it changes, how it's thicker here and then it's thinner there. Hopefully you guys are listening on video. But yeah, I get what you're saying. The ratio is not a 50-50, but it still goes to show you that you are burning another wrapper leaf.
Yeah, you're
it.
getting that flavor.
So you're going to get some of it. So this was a tweak on the Reserva Real Nicaragua. They added, and it says double, but I think you're right there. I'm doing it right now. Let's find out. Yeah, it's right on top.
So it's just a pinstripe.
So it's a pinstripe. That's more than a pinstripe. Well, I just peeled mine off. Don't do that. It's more than pinstripe. It's a thicker, stripe, I'd say. Yours is, I guess, a little bit more. See what
I know. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like,
what about you?
Mine's kind of thin. I think he snubbed us.
Well,
Completely random.
I mean, it is his cigar, so he can do what he wants with them.
Oh my God.
His house rules.
What is that darker wrapper on there?
It is Nicaraguan Maduro. So it's Nicaraguan Habano and Nicaraguan Maduro.
Okay.
is what I've been told. So I mean, this is again a tweak on the other one. They on a lot of the Alta stuff on the boxes and the information. If you remember back in the day, AJ Fernandez used to just with like he'd have proprietary on the wrapper leaf or whatever. This is a AJ Fernandez hybrid proprietary one. Now he's come out a little bit more with his stuff, but on the Alta stuff on the box, it literally just says wrapper Nicaragua, binder Nicaragua, filler Nicaragua. So they're not 100% out there with what is in it. They don't give us the mash bill of the cigar, if you will. So. It's interesting that they did this. I think it is a little bit of a marketing thing. I think it's going to be something that does showcase a little bit of a tweak to the blend. What's wrong? You look confused.
Going cigar to whiskey. Holy fucking shit.
It's good.
Oh,
well,
I mean,
go ahead.
I think you heard me do it, and then you're like, "Oh,
go ahead." So I can do it later.
The cigar. So because the whiskey has so much spice to it, when you go whiskey and then immediately take a puff of the cigar, it lights your tongue on fire. But when you take a good draw on the cigar and then go to the whiskey, holy shit, does that change the way it hits the palate?
It does.
Oh,
completely.
I mean,
What are you
actually,
doing? I'm getting like this, like a cow tail, like that caramel outside with the vanilla cream in the middle.
okay, you said cow tail. I'm like, what?
Not like a real cow tail.
Okay.
Come on now.
On a farm.
Jesus.
Have you met my wife?
I have not. Hi, Jess.
So one, that butter that you talked about right at the very beginning, a lot more pronounced. And it brings out more sweetness that I didn't initially get on the first glass of this. There's that sweetness because I waited until after the first glass before I lit up my cigar.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
So that sweetness, kind of that butterscotch note comes through a little bit more. But then initially when I did it, I was like, am I tasting lemon? What the fuck? Like there was this.
Not getting as much lemon.
No, but well, I'm not saying it's like drinking lemonade, but that was the first thing that popped in my head. It was this citrus,
like a spicy lemon pie,
tropical citrus note. As soon as that hit,
like the pie crust too, though, like you're talking about with the bread. That's what I'm getting there.
Yeah, that's nice.
The finish.
Yeah.
Like this cigar, this is not a full body cigar.
No.
But it actually tames this whiskey a little bit. It calms down the spice. Like even the spice on the finish is not lasting as long as it was. More of that sweetness is coming out at the front of this that I wasn't initially getting.
Yeah.
So if you're someone that likes to smoke cigars with the whiskey, like, and we talk about it a lot where, going one way can be different than going the other way. But yeah, this is one of those where, wow, I mean, there's a lot of change on that with these two.
What are your thoughts on the cigar itself?
So the wrapper's got that toothiness to it where you got like those little bumps in the wrapper because you can even see them on the ash as well. I do like Habano, get nice leathery notes to Habano typically. Little bit of spice on this one, not necessarily as much as I was expecting from a Nicaraguan Puro.
What about in the Retro Hill? I get more spice than
yeah, there's definitely some spice coming through on the nose.
Yeah.
But it's really smooth on the palate. It's got some strength to it. I mean, this is not a mild cigar by any means, but it's not something that's gonna, kick you over the head with strength, but the flavor is very intense.
Yeah.
And tons of smoke coming off of it. And I love that if I get a cigar that just billows smoke on the on the draw, not just like with Connecticut broadleaf where it just billows as the cigar's just sitting there, but like when there's a ton of smoke on the palate, like that's one of the things I love in a cigar, and this has got quite a bit of it.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Ryan, what do you think of the cigar?
This may be my favorite cigar I've shared with you guys.
Nice.
I I feel like I'm getting better at identifying flavor notes in cigars.
We're gonna find out.
Well,
No, we're gonna
I'll say
find out.
I'll say that very loosely then.
The reason I say that while you're talking, we're gonna light up the other one too.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what Nate's saying. It's before the whiskey, or the cigar alone without the whiskey is a little bit, it'll light your tongue up. When I first lit it, it was pretty spicy. Now that I'm about a quarter of the way through it, I'm getting this really nice chocolatey note.
On the cigar?
Like nice, I wouldn't say dark chocolate, so to speak, but not really milk chocolate. Like it's just this really nice velvety feeling. Really nice dark coffee note.
Yeah, like a bitter black coffee.
Yeah, like a really nice coffee note that I like. And it's not, I would agree, it's not like super intense, but it's just enough of an intensity that I'm really enjoying it.
Nice. Well, as you guys are smoking, as we're going to talk about this some more here, like we're going to cut the other one and do a back-to-back here and see if we can tell some.
Oh, man.
See if you can.
Cannonball coming.
Ryan, we're going to test you here.
Oh, man, I didn't know I was going to be tested. I feel unprepared.
Well, you're fine. You're fine. Let's go back as we do this. So what we're doing right now is the reason I kind of want to do this, because I know you guys do this quite a bit when you're testing different, tasting different things. Sometimes you're going to have, like we did before the show here, we had a couple samples of just tweaking something in the process. So this is something that instead of waiting till the second part, we're going to light up the Romeo y Julieta, the Reserva Real Nicaragua, which again is basically the original of this midnight twist. We're going to see if we find any differences smoking this one along with it.
It's exciting. I've never done this before.
There you go. Something new for you. Something new. I wouldn't really do this much on it. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know much about that, Ryan, but like a lot of times when they do cigars, they will take like a single leaf of a tobacco plant, and whether it's the viso, the bottom layer leaf, seco in the middle, the hair on the top, and they'll make a little puro of just that leaf, and they'll smoke it and see what flavor notes they get out of that. And some of these blenders that have been doing this for decades, they've got a whole encyclopedia inside their head of what this tobacco strain grown in this soil from this country, this plant on the leaf, like this is what that tastes like. And so they know all this, and they're like, all right, what if we take this and this? What do those taste like together? All right, let's take these three. So they'll sit there and add these tobaccos together. Yeah. And because sometimes things look really good on paper. Yeah. But when you put them together, they don't mesh well. Yeah. And so that's how they try and come up with a blend, is like, all right, like what are we going for and what works well together to try and get us to that profile. And so there's a bunch of that where they're just trying, they'll change out the binder leaf or change out one of the filler leaves and do stuff like that. And it can have a profound impact on, same thing with changing your guys' water. Yeah. How you guys do that. Absolutely. Or where it's stored in the rick house, or, all that, what your entry proof is, all that kind of stuff changes how that final whiskey comes out. Yeah, so
for sure.
It absolutely does. And I want to get to, while we're lighting this up and you guys get acquainted with the Reserva Real Nicaragua here, Chris Rickle had a question for you. I don't know if Chris is still on. Hopefully you are. Sorry to make you wait for that. We want to touch on the cigars here before we get back into the bourbon as we get to the second half of part one here. But does Watershed plan on putting out longer age statement options? I don't know if he's referring to your kind of everyday stuff. I know that with some of the special projects you do, you see more of like a 5 or a 6 and not, an 8 now. It's like, I don't know if he's necessarily referring to like, are we going to see some 10s? We're going to see that when you're seeing your everyday stuff, like, because I think people see on the shelf, comparable price tags to your 4-year blended and then your obviously 4-year bottle and bond. You see like a Russell's Reserve 10-year. Eagle Rare, if you can see it around that price point as well, 10-year statement on there. Some, like, I guess they might do a 12 is what we're hearing now too, but kind of, I guess, field both sides of that. Question.
Chris, thank you for that question. This is a great topic. I love talking about, growth in the spirits industry and Watershed specifically. To answer that broad overhead question, absolutely. The goal is, at least typically for the more well-known legacy distilleries, they're always trying to get a higher age statement out there.
Mhm.
And we're no different. We're putting away more bourbon than we ever have. In the last 3 years, we've put away more. We've already put away more rye this year than we did all of last year.
Mhm.
So the goal is to always, increase that age statement. As far as when you'll see that in the market, I can't really say at this time. But what I can say is there have been conversations.
Okay.
We've had meetings about, where we want to take our age statements on not only our bourbon, but our rye, our brandy, our just everything. We're doing a wheated bourbon that we're putting away. That's still got a ways to go, but we're doing.
No one's listening. It's fine.
Yeah, so that's always the goal.
That has a nice ring to it.
I'll
though.
see you. I'll see you again in 4 years.
Yeah, so that's always the goal. As far as, like I said, I can't really say when that's going to be, but what I can say is I'm already looking at product releases for 2032, 2033, 2034. So
Hope you're still there when that comes out.
Yeah, we're really
I mean,
planning for
what's
the
that?
future. And
I said I hope you're still there when that stuff comes to fruition and comes out.
Absolutely. That's going to be a lot of fun when we start seeing those, the 10, 12, 15s, whatever's decided. That's going to be an exciting time, and I hope I get to share a glass of it with you guys, when we get to that point. That'll be pretty special.
I think we'll do that. Figure that out.
Pencil me in.
Pencil you in.
Yeah, as long as you're not out of state, like even if you're not with Watershed when that comes out, if you're still local, like, hey, come back, we got something. We want
Absolutely.
we got your baby here.
Yeah, I'd love that. So yeah, that's always the goal, Chris. Thank you for that question. I love talking about the age, the maturation periods of our stock and seeing where it's going. We're up to about, I think I just eclipsed 4,000 total barrels in the warehouse now.
Mhm.
So we're growing. We're still putting away a lot of whiskey, and that stuff will come down the line soon enough.
And for those that have never been to Watershed, one, if you're, I definitely recommend doing a tour at Watershed. But if you've never been there, when you take a tour and you go to where the distillery is, where all the tanks are, where the stills are, when you actually go there, like, you can see all the fermenter tanks and the stills just standing in one spot. Like, you can see it's not a big operation in terms of how many vats and stills you guys have going. So to still be putting away that much product, like, there's a lot, like, you guys are working tirelessly,
Absolutely.
putting stuff out. And then, now that you guys have that bigger space, it's like, cool, now we got to fill it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Just to kind of echo what Nate's saying here, just to give you a little perspective. So the size of tanks that, like these legacy distilleries have, Buffalo Trace or a Green River, they have these humongous tanks.
Massive.
They're putting away more whiskey in about 3 days than we do for the entire year. So just to put
That's
that
a
in,
hell of a
just to put that into
ratio
some
there.
scale
Yeah.
for you. We are still definitely heavily on the craft side of producing whiskey, but we're trying to put away as much as possible. We're trying to keep the mash bills interesting. We're trying to keep the finishes interesting. We're trying to stay ahead of the curve, so to speak.
Yeah, I remember when Steve and I went to Old Forester. That was 4 years ago now.
Yeah. 4 years. Yeah.
When you do the tour there, they've got a couple of those fermenter tanks on the tour, and I remember the tour guide saying, so these we have here for the tours, that way people can see, obviously these stills work, they produce a product.
Mhm.
That product does get used. But if you go to the main distillery, those tanks are about 10 times that size.
Yeah.
And the tanks at the tour are about the size of the tanks you're using.
Yeah. It's if you ever get the opportunity to see a behind the scenes at these legacy distilleries, it's hard to grasp the scale that these guys are producing at.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, one of Buffalo Trace's fermenters can do enough whiskey in about 2 to 3 days that we can do for an entire year.
Yeah.
Just trying to wrap your head around that is just mind blowing.
And I remember there was a video that came out last year where it was someone with Brown Foreman talking about the tax that distilleries pay when they put something into the barrel. Like
Yeah.
distilleries have to pay a tax on that as soon as they barrel it.
Yeah.
So that barrel is going to sit for years before they ever recoup that money. And some of these distilleries, they're paying millions of dollars a day just in the proof tax for what they've distilled and barreled.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. If you look at Kentucky specifically, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, they came out and said, gave a statistic where there are more barrels of whiskey aging than there are population per capita.
That's been that way for years.
Just
like
think about
it's almost a 2-to-1 ratio.
just think about the amount of taxes that you have to pay on that amount of whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
Is incredible.
It's very lucrative for the government.
Yeah. So
Uncle Sam's happy.
Yeah, Google the population of Kentucky, double that, and that's about how many barrels are in that state.
Well, I wanted to say too, with this question from Chris Rickle, since we I'm curious what would be, what people like Chris, if you're interested in it, what are you willing to pay for a Watershed 10-year? Because when it comes into that, with everything being said, with the just vast difference of size, right?
Yeah.
So you guys sitting on stuff for 10 years. Now, granted, I mean, like your 4-year blended, I mean, you could offset that cost a little bit by blending with like MGP or some other things where it's not necessarily all of your, it's not a 10-year like all Watershed juice, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that would be the most likely, from my knowledge, would be like the less expensive way, which would then translate to a lesser expensive bottle on the shelf.
Yeah.
Because I don't see you being like, oh, well, just like Russell's, like the Watershed 10-year is going to be $45. It's $5 more than the 4-year product or something like that. Like, it's just not doable. It'd be interesting to see. And I would imagine that most years, as you guys are getting to that point, will be more of the special projects that are getting, just like the rye. I mean, the rye project that we're focusing on tonight, I think is probably, and you tell me if I'm wrong, it's a great example of how you get there. Like you're kind of you're working on the project, but you think about this. This has been several years in the making now, and to get to a point where you're trying to get a core product to be, or a tier level higher, if you will. You'll still have your 4-year and your 4-year bottled and bond, but then you'll have the Watershed 6. You'll have the Watershed, because that is something that I love this question, and sorry to stay on it so much, but Chris brings up a good point that a lot of people with the quote local distilleries, they're like, it's too young.
Mm-hmm.
And it tastes young, and I think sometimes they get into their head too. Yeah. Some people can tell the difference if you're doing a blind taste test. I will give them credit, but they'll see a 4 on there and they're like, yeah, I don't drink anything less than blah. And you're like,
I hate that.
Right. Like, calm down a little bit.
It drives me nuts.
But I think for the everyday products, I mean, there are plenty of them that have a higher than a 4-year age statement that are still in that, $50 to $100 price point. And I can envision if you had a pure Watershed 10-year, it's north of $100. I would imagine it's got to be in that ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, it's
just for the cost of that business,
for sure. And I think this is it's a lot bigger of a conversation than what would you pay for X number of years. A lot of this to me is building a reputation.
Yeah.
So you have to, in order to charge a premium, you have to have the credibility behind it. Like, I can't just start I can't just go in my backyard and get all my permits and get my licenses and source some 10-year-old MGP and release it to the market for $150.
Against the HOA, or
well, yeah, probably.
What's that guy doing over there?
Yeah, Henry of the HOA would probably throw a fit.
Yeah,
but no, there's no credibility there, right? Like, who am I? Like, I'm just a guy buying whiskey and releasing it 10.
Well, you say that, but that happens a lot.
It does. I guess MGP was a bad example, but you take take any other, if I get a barrel of, if I go to Wild Turkey and I source a barrel that they've got sitting in the back that's been aging for 13 years, they rejected it for their 13-year line, and I go and buy it and I try to sell it for $200. Nobody's buying that because nobody knows me. Like, you have to have some sort of credibility.
I agree.
You have to have a reputation. You have to build the clout around a premium product like that.
Amy brings up a great point there from Watershed. Aged product requires patience and planning. We are committed to both so that we're able to say it's our own. Absolutely. So it's a great point, and that kind of leads us into the topic for part 2, so we can get back to that as well. But thank you, Amy, for listening, and obviously the support as well, and great point.
Yeah, it's every now and then I get someone that comes into the store and like they're looking for something in that like 8 to 15 year range,
I hate those people.
but like they want to spend like $60. I'm like, yeah, no. Like, no.
But that's what I mean. Again, you see it on some of the labels, right? I mean, so I bring up Russell's as a prime example. I mean, just the sheer volume they're able to do with that, and it's got a 10-year. And if you're just looking for years that's a great buy for that reason.
It
right?
is.
I mean, but on a blind taste test,
Yeah.
are the majority of consumers going to tell a difference? Or can say, oh, this one's a 10-year, this is a 6-year, this is a 4-year. You know, sometimes you think you can, but not all the time.
Yeah.
I want to go to this part of this as we're going into the kind of rating here. You guys have been smoking the Romeo, the regular, if you will, the Reserva Real Nicaragua. Ryan, you kind of lit up there that you can tell a difference. Now, I don't know for sure because, you know, our source that I have it all to this can't necessarily confirm that this is identical filler, identical binder.
Yeah.
And they just wrapped as Nate was saying, like a stripe around it with a material wrapper. What are your thoughts on the difference of the cigars? And then also kind of, and we'll go to the ratings here next, but have you done the back and forth of the whiskey with the different cigars?
I have, yeah. So I'll talk about cigar to cigar first. This was actually my first experience going from one cigar to a different one. And I mean, there is a noticeable difference. Noticeable.
What are you feeling there?
I think on the second cigar that we lit up is much more mellowed out compared to the first one we did. It has less of the spice notes from the first one, but it has this really nice creamy texture to it, which was actually, I really am enjoying going back and forth to both of them, kind of getting the combination of flavors. But then going from the second one we had, going from the cigar to the whiskey, I almost feel like it doesn't do the whiskey justice. I feel like that spice kind of comes back into the forefront.
I think it's,
it kind of, I much prefer the first one going to the whiskey than the second cigar then going to the whiskey. For sure.
For me, like smoking the Reserva Real Nicaragua, the second cigar, and then going to the whiskey, you lose that the balance that was coming from whiskey. Yeah, I'm not saying it takes it back to just sipping on the whiskey, but I almost think that it kind of brings out some lighter notes to it, and then you get that what we were talking about kind of on that finish in the back of your palate and throat and tongue area. Like it almost kind of gives it a little bit more of that tang kick to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where the Midnight Twist, it complemented your rye in a sense that it kind of altered it. It kind of brought out some different things. Nate, what do you think?
So going cigar to cigar, I have a hard time believing that the only difference is that pinstripe. Like there's got to be more to it than that
but I can't guarantee there is or isn't. You know what I mean?
And I get that. Just the spice that's on the Midnight Twist, especially through the retrohale, that's got a lot of spice through the nose. The original Reserva Real Nicaragua doesn't have anywhere near the amount of spice through the nose. On the palate, the original has more of that leather note on the palate. The other one had some oak and some bitter coffee notes to it. So there was a lot more complexity with that cigar. Going whiskey to either cigar, whiskey to the Midnight Twist just fires the tongue. That spice just all of a sudden reignites and just makes your tongue tingle for a while. With the original Reserva Real, that's much more subdued. It's an easier transition. Going Midnight Twist to the whiskey, that butterscotch that I don't get from the whiskey on its own is much more prominent. It tames the spice that's on the rye. So it for me, going Midnight Twist to the whiskey balances out the whiskey a little bit just on the palate because the spice isn't as intense. Going from the original Reserva Real Nicaragua to the whiskey, it's a different flavor profile. It's a little bit more floral, and there's still a sweetness. It's more like a honeysuckle type of note.
This is on the original?
On the original Reserva Real Nicaragua. to the whiskey. There's kind of this
Lighter and sweeter, right?
yeah, there's like I said, like a honeysuckle, whereas the midnight twist to the whiskey, it's like a heavier butterscotch note, and that one tames the spice on the whiskey a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's so wild that
Yeah.
those two cigars are so different, and they interact with the whiskey so vastly different.
Well, I like doing this for, again, I wish, David, who was on the show last week, he's our Altadis rep. I wish, we had a little bit more. And I get why they don't necessarily do it. I can also see it from a business standpoint. How great would it be? Say the Reserva, and I don't know, this is just hypothetical. Say they put out the original Reserva Real, right? Or Reserva Real Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And say it wasn't doing what they projected.
Okay.
From a with you
From a
guys,
sales
same thing.
standpoint, yeah.
They can take, say they haven't banded everything, they just have them sitting there aging or whatever that might be. And they're like, you know what we could do is we can stripe it with a Maduro wrapper and we can market it as that. And on the flip side of that, you could have people that are doubting it and being like, well, I mean, why? It's the same cigar. You just put a cute little barber pole or whatever on there, or a stripe on it. But when you do what we're doing right now, there's two things that really kind of, if it is the same, this is a different cigar. So for those that have not had the midnight twist, but you've had the original Nicaragua Reserva Real, I encourage you, based on what we're saying here tonight, is that it does have a different flavor profile.
Yeah.
It does change the flavor, whether or not it's a tweaked blend or it is a different cigar.
Yeah.
From a marketing standpoint, it can be looked at as a gimmick, and I just striped it, right?
Yeah. The midnight twist definitely has,
It's
I think,
going to get cold. It's a metal lighter, so it's going to get cold.
Gotcha.
But I will say the other thing that comes out of it, number two, is, and I know, Ryan, you've been on the show where we've done two cigars, but not necessarily back to back,
Yeah.
and you're sipping on the same whiskey. You smoke a cigar, but you've also had more time. You've had a little more whiskey, and then all of a sudden you light up something different. You might turn it up too. It just shows how much the blended tobacco can kind of either be better, worse, or just different with the same bottle.
Absolutely.
Which is always a kind of an interesting thing, and that's always fun to do if you guys are hanging out by yourself with some friends, and say you're hanging out with the same bottle, right? But you smoke a cigar, and then you're like, hey, let's have another cigar, and just see how it changes. But doing it all at the same time, I think it's fun. It's a fun kind of game to play where you can kind of see the dramatic difference, how they play against each other or for each other.
Absolutely. I'm thoroughly enjoing this.
It has to be right up your wheelhouse with what you do for a living.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys obviously know, I don't smoke very often. I probably actually smoke with you guys more than anywhere else.
That's fair.
But yeah, the difference in the two, I never thought that was actually, a real thing. Yeah, I always thought like every cigar is the same, like tobacco, and
I get it.
it's whatever. But no, this is eye-opening, just the amount of difference you can have cigar to cigar, and then even going from cigar to whiskey. I would almost say that the way I'd phrase it is going from the midnight twist to the whiskey, the cigar complements the whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Going from the other one, the original,
Reserva Nicaragua, yeah,
that one, going from whiskey to cigar, the whiskey almost complements the cigar more.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I'm having a lot of fun with this right now.
That leads into the rating, right? As we round out part one here. And as we get into this, I do want to kind of really hit on this right now. So the whiskey tonight is the Watershed batch number 3 of the rye. And this is really and for those listening, we appreciate it. This is kind of the first exposure truly of this bottle for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
This project was planned to be released, and then you guys tweaked it a bit as far as the program. It's not necessarily changed the product. Obviously, you've already had a bottle that's ready to roll.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, if you can tell everyone kind of how can they get their hands on this bottle going forward? You don't necessarily need to, what was tweaked, but like, here we are.
Yeah.
This bottle is going to be available through Watershed only. You will not see this on the shelves anywhere other than at Watershed. So those listening tonight, they like what we had to say. They're saying, hey, I want to get my hands on that bottle. Tell them how they can kind of get it.
Absolutely.
It's
yeah.
not that easy.
you
It's
can try.
Yeah, we touched on a little bit earlier. There was a very limited run of these bottles, only about 200 that's going to be available to the public. And we are going to do it lottery style again. So sometime next month in May, we haven't decided on a date yet, but that lottery will open. You'll be able to go to watersheddistillery.com, enter your chance to win this bottle, and then you just show up at the distillery if you're a winner, purchase your bottle, and take it home with you. Very limited, highest age statement we've ever put out on any of our whiskey. So we're really, really excited, really, really proud of this product.
And what is the price of this bottle? If you get so again, watersheddistillery.com, it's very easy to enter the lottery. I mean, it's just hit a couple links and fill in some information.
Yeah.
And then they have the details of obviously who wins, right? You'll get an email, and then you have until a certain date. Correct. When it is announced, to actually secure your bottle.
Absolutely. Yeah. You'll be given a window. It's usually typically about a week to pick up. And then if you are a winner and you don't redeem in that week, that'll just go to the public. So we try to encourage everybody to show up and get their bottle, because like I said, 200 bottles, they're going to go quick. We also have an option where Amy, you guys know Amy in the bottle shop.
She does
great work for us. If you just call her, and pay for it over the phone, we'll hold it for you so that you can come pick it up at your convenience. So there's more options than, just, oh shoot, I want a bottle, but I live in Cleveland. It's really hard for me to drive 2.5 hours to get down here to get it. As long as you work with us, we'll work with you.
They will not ship.
We do not ship.
They will not ship this bottle. I will say that. But they are very, very friendly with you. If you're like, hey, you know what? It's going to take me. I'm coming in the area in 4 weeks. Yeah. Can I pay for it over the phone or whatever it is? They will work with you on that. They're very good about that. They understand the circumstances, and they also understand the reach they have now. It's not just in the Columbus area, and people are entering this lottery all over Ohio and even further. That they will work with you. I just want to encourage you to not just be like, oh, I'm not going to be there, so I'm not going to claim my bottle.
There was one time I went and picked up a bottle that I had won, and there was a lady in front of me that she doesn't even live in Ohio. But she was in Ohio when the lottery came out. She registered, and when she found out she won, she actually flew up from Florida and bought that bottle, bought some other bottles from the shop, bought some swag, some shirts and everything, and just made a trip out of it.
Like I said, if you guys can just let us know and, work with us, we absolutely will work with you and make it worth your trip. We try to make it as easy as possible for you guys. And again, just reiterating, such a limited run. If you win and you don't come pick it up or you don't pay for it over the phone, I can, with 99% accuracy, guarantee it's going to be gone. So if
this is not one that you're going to see. So there's other ones like the fall finishing series. If there are extras, that's some of the perks of also going in. If you're a big Watershed fan or you want to get into the Watershed Distillery game there, say you do win this or you don't. But if you do win this, you go in there, take a look around, because it's not just, not saying that's a bad thing, but it's not just your core products. There are also some lingering products that may be there. Like I picked up the maple syrup one that you brought tonight. You said there might be some of your Nocino fall finishing series there. The port might be there. You just don't know. The uncut, unfiltered, certain batches, stuff like that. It's just a cool shop there. And then just to give you guys a plug too, before we do the rating here, there's a great restaurant as well that you guys have attached there. That you guys have craft cocktails. You can try stuff too. If you see a bottle in the bottle shop and you're like, I don't know if I want to pull the trigger on the bottle that's $69 or $99 or whatever it is, you guys have done your best. This is what I'll say about what we were talking about prior to the podcast. You have done your best to not get in the game of just pricing out of some of the consumers, right?
Absolutely.
But the nice thing is if you want to try something, there's a great chance they have it at the bar, which is in the same building there. Go to the bar, get some dinner or whatever, or you can just go obviously and just have a cocktail or have a sample of a bottle that's in the bottle shop before you pull the trigger on it. It's a fantastic.
I've done that multiple times.
Yeah.
Try some lingering single barrel pick.
Yeah.
That's
the
there.
other thing is there single barrels.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's tons of times where we'll go in the back of the warehouse and we have a case of, maybe a Nocino finish from where people won the lottery, but they didn't pick up. So there's definitely times where you come in on the right day and the right time, you get lucky, and we've got some of those for sale.
Catch Amy in the right mood. No.
So this is going to be if you enter the lottery, and that'll be in May.
Sometime in May. Yeah,
So
we haven't-
it'll be
we haven't
announced.
released the date yet.
So you enter the lottery. If you get the opportunity to purchase it, winning that lottery, it's $99.99. So it is right at that. Basically, other than one bottle that I can remember, that is your cap at the moment.
That's just that's the highest end of our portfolios right now. Is that $99.99 price point?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where we're hanging out.
No, you guys worked, like I said, you've worked very hard to stay affordable, where a lot of, I think, again, quote, local distilleries, not just here, elsewhere, that's not the case. A lot of the special projects will bring higher price tags because there is, it's a gamble, right? I mean, you guys are putting stuff in there that you're not sure what's going to how it's going to hit the market, especially with the one-offs like this.
Yeah.
The rating, let's do this. Ryan, let's start with you. The whiskey, the cigar. Let's focus on the Reserva Real Nicaragua Midnight Twist. I think we've already commented on the differences of the two different cigars, but let's focus on the first one, the featured cigar tonight, and do the whiskey, the cigar, the pairing. 10 is the best. Three different ratings. Go ahead.
Yeah. So at first, on the first, couple hits I took on the Midnight Twist, I wasn't a huge fan. It was kind of like Nate was saying, it's really spicy. It kind of smacks your tongue in the face. But the more I got into it, I got, those chocolatey notes, that dark coffee, and was really starting to enjoy it. I would say definitely I give the cigar a 7. It really was starting to grow on me the further into it I was getting. The whiskey, this is as unbiased as it could possibly be. This is fantastic. I was talking about it earlier. This is completely different than anything we've released so far of any of our portfolios, different mash bill, different flavor profiles. It was a lot of fun to, pick around these barrels and make the selection. I would give it probably an 8.3. Just for
after those words, man,
it being it's
harsh
rich.
judge.
Do I need to adjust my ratings then?
No, not at all.
Me,
Not at all.
Because I also have the privilege of knowing what we we have back then.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
I don't want to go out of the gate too fast, but definitely a solid 8.3. The pairing itself, the Midnight Twist, I feel like definitely paired better with the whiskey than the second cigar. I would say the pairing together, going from cigar to whiskey, is probably about an 8.5.
Nice.
Really enhances those. It brings out some of those sweeter notes in the whiskey that you don't get without the cigar, which I really enjoyed. It kind of brings you back to our standard Watershed notes that you get. So I enjoy the pairing most of all. But yeah, overall, I was really enjoying the entire experience here.
Fantastic. Nate, how about you?
So on the whiskey, I'm going to be a little bit more gracious, I guess, than Ryan. No, I had it set in my mind, 20 minutes ago. This bottle of whiskey, I'm giving this a 9.5.
Wow.
Like this,
Wow.
like the
Looks like Jess is entering the lottery.
so. No, I mean, so there's a lot of spice that comes through on the palate for this whiskey, but there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of other flavors there. Given the mash bill with as much corn as in there, I'm surprised there's not as much sweetness coming through in this one.
Yeah.
I don't get as much vanilla or caramel or butterscotch on it. I feel like that rye spice and that bready, yeasty note is really at the forefront. So I'm leaving a little bit of room, because I think there could be an adjustment of the balance on that.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, that's like trying to, create in your mind the perfect whiskey. I guarantee you.
That's what Ryan does for a living.
I'm trying.
I guarantee you if we went back.
Closer and closer every day.
I guarantee you if we went back and I tried the very first bottle that I ever rated a 10, I'd probably have a different rating on that
Sure.
bottle.
I think that happens over time.
Yeah.
But I do remember that was a fucking good bottle, and it was a rye. But no, this is an absolutely fantastic product. Like I said, I recently had batch 2, which was a 6-year and 145 proof. But
It's just 145.
yeah, this one has a lot of those same flavor notes, but I think there's more complexity and more going on with this one
Okay.
than the 6-year, which I think is a fantastic achievement. On the cigar, I said earlier, it amazes me the difference between these two cigars.
Focus on the
and
midnight twist, though. Yeah.
And what's the price point on this one? We didn't talk about that.
11, 12, somewhere around there. It's average. Yeah.
So on the cigar, I don't get as much spice on the palate. I get a lot of it on the retrohale. But it's not a full bodied cigar, but the flavor is definitely full flavored, not necessarily full body, medium plus in terms of the strength of the cigar, I would say. Coming in with that price point, yeah, I'm going to give this cigar an 8.5. I think this is definitely a solid smoke. This is probably going to be up there with like the best, I think, of the Romeo and Julieta portfolio.
Nice.
I like the Romeos.
Hopefully we'll be smoking the Romeo Julieta 150th here soon with David. Just
yeah, I know.
But that was said tonight.
Yeah. Dave, we got to make that happen. But yeah, this cigar's got so much flavor to it. The pairing, definitely agree. I said it earlier. I agree with Ryan. This is one of those pairings where I think you've got to go cigar to whiskey because it definitely changes how the whiskey hits your palate. It brings out more of those sweeter notes and it tames that spice a little bit. So, like the things I was leaving room for in the whiskey, the cigar kind of helps balance that out. So going cigar to whiskey, that pairing right there, I think that's a 9.5 pairing. Whiskey to this cigar, the Midnight Twist, that just reignites all that spice that's lingering. That's not necessarily what I enjoy going that direction. I mean, so that kind of pairing is more like in that 7 range, but that's one of those where I'm definitely sitting here going, I'm going to wait till I puff on the cigar before I go back to the whiskey.
I think that's a smart pairing then, because that means you're smoking the cigar a little bit more than you're sipping on the whiskey, which also will extend your night. So I think
I like that.
You add that in there, right? Yeah, exactly. So for me, the whiskey, I think I've been a fan of the other 2 batches of this. I'm at an 8.75. I mean, it's very good. I love the fact. I love it, and I could love it either way, I guess. But I love the fact that you didn't do a 95.5. You know what I mean? Like this is a special project, so you guys came out and you're trying to be unique. You're trying, like to what you said earlier. To your point, you're trying to go for the flavor. So you're doing something where you're going to release something at a barrel strength. You're not necessarily going to go shock value with the 140 something range again, which I also like. You know what I mean? The first batch, if I'm not mistaken, was in the 120s. So this is something that I think that is kind of a cool project. Call it 8.75. I think, pushing 9. This is a very unique bottle. It's fun. It's it's all flavor. The fact that you're in the 120s and you're not feeling it, in your chest as much.
That's insane.
That's kind of my point. Is like it's all about the flavor, which I think is something that and they're successful at it. I mean, I think some distilleries will do the opposite. They want you to just get kind of throat punched and kind of like a gut punch, or you know what I mean.
We've had whiskeys that were below 100 that had the hug.
Yeah.
So this I think being it's almost 130. It's like,
I think it's very, very cool that you guys did that. The cigar, I'm with you guys. This is my second Midnight Twist in about a week and a half since we got it back in. As far as that, because they did a Twisted Love Story originally with this. So they have kind of flirted with this blend tweak of the Reserva Real Nicaragua. I love the branding. I love the blue and white. I like the way they went with Nicaragua colors. There's the marketing behind it, and they kept with the traditional. I don't have a box here tonight, but they kept with the traditional, just kind of that wood box, but with the paper on it. It's a very classic looking box. And they just kept it Nicaragua. And it's hard to do wrong with AJ. I'll give this cigar an 8.25. I really do like this cigar. It's The price point is fantastic. You kept with the normal Romeo price point, so I think that's also valuable to a customer.
You're not creeping in the Monte Cristo price point.
And they have to keep it separate, right? But I think, when we talk about the Romeo 150 coming out, that price points are just, that game's off to do that. So
Yeah.
The pairing, I'm not
talked about
going
that last
to necessarily echo what you guys said. I will agree with what you guys said on how the two different cigars went with it. I do prefer the Midnight Twist with the bottle. I think there is a lot of building off of each other. Last week we had a pairing where it was like there was too much personality on both sides. Like I said last week, I think this one is that they marry really well together. And I agree. What was it? Cigar to whiskey is a little bit better of a combo than the whiskey to the cigar. But either way you go, I mean, just the overall experience has been fantastic. So I think I'll give it a 9 on the pairing. I mean, you could have a 7 and a 7, but the pairing is a 9 on this one. You know what I mean?
We've had that before.
Yeah. So I think this is great. So that being said, guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday. We're going to roll into part 2. Ryan, thank you for bringing this. Guys, enter that lottery once the details are announced. We'll put it on the Bourbon and BS community page. We'll put it on the Bourbon and BS Instagram and all the social media just to promote that as well. But follow Watershed Distillery on social media and you will get all the information. So, Ryan, thank you very much. Cheers.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Nate, cheers. Oh,
Good clink.
you guys need a break? You want to roll right through?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Let's do it. Are we pouring? You want to crack the other one, or is that what you brought, or is that just a display bottle?
I don't bring whiskey just to look at.
I don't want to assume.
I'm not one of those guys, brother.
It's a beautiful label.
Yeah.
Kyle, you out of here? There you go.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome. Stop by the distillery. I'll give you a VIP tour.
Love it. Thanks, Kyle. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 333, part 2. Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome. Still got Ryan Venrick here, and we were just highlighting the Watershed Rye batch number 3. That is almost breaking news here on the Bourbon and BS podcast. So stay tuned for more details. We will do our best to share it, but follow Watershed Distillery on all the social media. And also, I think you guys do have an email mailing list. Once you sign up for something, you'll get those. So if you have entered other lotteries or you've expressed interest in Watershed Distillery, there's a great chance that you will get an email about this lottery, but I would encourage you to follow them on social media if you haven't already, and we'll do our best to share it as well. Tonight, we are in part 2. Topic is, even though it doesn't feel like it right now, and I don't think it's officially here yet. Is it? Are we spring
Last
yet?
month.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, March 20th or 21st was
Spring
the
is
first
here.
official day of spring.
Parentheses, not convincingly. End parentheses.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the mid 50s today. Nice.
Sunday and Monday was great.
It was sunny.
I actually had
Fantastic.
cigars on the patio on Sunday. It was great.
Got my grass mowed for the first time on
I did
Sunday.
too. Don't really love that, but I mean, here we are. The good and the bad,
Well,
right?
to me, that's the start of spring.
Yeah, first milk.
Everything's starting to grow.
Flowers
We
have
got
bloomed. Now they're
flowers blooming.
dying.
We just
Now they're going
got
to bloom
some of
again.
we got some starter plants that are in the house right now.
Love it. Love it.
You start playing bulbs in the garden or seeds in the garden.
Yeah.
We're just figuring out what's blooming. Like, we've had some great flowers already. Some of this tree up front has some nice, beautiful
Yeah.
blooming going on.
What
We'll
the
find
people
out.
before you planted.
See what they did. I mean, great landscaping. I just had it touched up on Monday too. So spring is here. Texted Nate on that one on the topic. Do you want to kind of say what you texted?
Well,
do you remember?
So yeah. So when Steve mentioned the whole idea of spring is here, I kind of look at spring as almost a prepping season for the summer, and that leads into the fall. So I think of it almost like an agricultural standpoint. Like, you're planting your flower buds or your seeds. This is the time that you start doing that. Or, you start mulching, you start spraying your lawn to take care of weeds and stuff like that. Although, personally, I don't mind dandelions in the spring
No.
because those are the first food source for
For
bees.
bees. Yep.
See,
Or so is my deck, apparently. Different type of bees.
carpenter bees.
Yeah,
they
those
love
are the
wood.
bad
Yeah. No.
Amazon had these
a little
things, and I was
different.
like, "This is going to be great." And I
Uh,
started reading up, and I did buy a few of them. They're basically these little things that hang and that have a little LED light, kind of like the things I have out front. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then I was like, well, "What do you put in there to attract these bees?" And they're like, "Honey, beer, whatever." I'm
Anything
like,
sweet.
Yeah.
"Yeah, all right, let's
Yeah.
try these out.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll get rid of the carpenter bees."
Steve's probably got a few Miller Lights hanging around somewhere.
Well, I got some other stuff too. I want to
Yeah.
go for like craft brews. I don't like. You know?
There you go.
Like, no, they weren't IPA. I get it. They don't
Yeah.
like the IPA.
Yeah.
The,
It's a
bee,
great resource.
Steve
the
said-
bees are just like circling around and they turn their head and walk away. you
Steve's
know?
sitting there looking at his garage fridge, going, "Who left shit here from the Super Bowl? I need to get rid of that stuff."
Probably Miller Lite.
It's-
Can't
So-
do the Modelo because that's her dad's beer. You know?
oh, you got to save that.
Gotta say.
But no, I so I was thinking, spring is kind of a planning, and it kind of pertains to what Ryan does. It's a planning, doing the work now for a harvest to kind of come in later on, but it also kind of sets a foundation. But then also, like, how does that apply, in life? Like, how do you work on things now so that way when something happens in the future, like, you're able to take care of that
Yeah.
and you're not necessarily panicking or freaking out, and you've done all the groundwork, and you're in a better position to be able to handle adversities that life throws your way.
Yeah, it's like spring is coming, and then if you're surprised at it, I also kind of relate it to the negative side of it when people complain about like it's still cold and all that stuff, and they're saying people that complain about it being too hot in about 2 months. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, the people in wintertime that complain, it's like, man, it's fucking 20 degrees. I'm like, yeah, in 6 months when it's 90, you're gonna be bitching and moaning
Well,
too.
that's what I was about to say. Is those are the same people though. They complain when it's cold and they complain when it's hot.
Absolutely.
Like, cool, you like 1 month out of the year, and that's when it's 70 degrees the whole fucking time, and that's it. And you're just miserable the rest.
Well, you had mentioned, Ryan, and then you also mentioned, the planning there. And that's where I kind of said in part one, where Amy Jones said, aged product requires patience and planning. We're committed to both so that we are able to say it's our own. I was talking about the older age statements on some of the bottles that Watershed's doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about that necessarily, but in the work arena, you, Ryan, doing this is that I feel like a big part of, to build off what Nate was saying, is that a huge part of your job is basically prepping for the next season. I
Absolutely.
mean, you guys just finished your fall finishing series, which before the podcast, you showed up and you're like, we're already working on next fall finishing series. You know what I mean? Like it's all about the prep. So when that spring gets here, the next season gets here, you've already kind of planned for what's going to happen. You're planning for your first mow. You're making sure that you got everything you need to do those things coming to fruition. It's coming.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sharpen the blades, check the spark plugs, change the gas.
Buy new
Oil.
blades, charge the batteries for the electric mower because I'm that guy. But Ryan, I mean, like, how does that kind of work for you with what you do? I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it's like you said on the home front. This is your 1 year in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned a little bit about I don't remember if I mentioned it while we were on the air, but I went and learned a little bit, took some classes from the goat herself, Nancy Fraley, and she did an interview one time.
Who is
that
she
I
for
saw.
everyone out there?
So Nancy Fraley, if you don't know who she is a kind of freelance master blender. So she's had her hands in a little bit of everything. She's worked with Wyoming whiskey a little bit. That's kind of how she, I believe, got her start in the whiskey world.
Is that who we met at the dinner?
No, that was Irene Tan.
That's right. I'm
which
sorry.
that's actually leads into this bottle. That's who we did a collaboration with.
Let's crack it, man.
But yeah, I went down and learned a little bit from Nancy, and I watched an interview
Crack
she
it while you
did.
speak, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Saw an interview she did one time, and she talked about how she's kind of grooming the next generation of blenders to have a different frame of mind for the creation and the maturation of whiskey. And she framed it as, we're not really doing things for the now, we're doing things for the future of what these spirits are going into. And she framed it as kind of in the mindset of, we're we're stewards more than we are anything. We know we're grooming the whiskey for somebody else to take over. So the barrels that I'm putting away now, I might see, another batch, 10, 15 years from now that, I did the programming and maturation for, but, eventually I'm going to be doing programming that's going to be passed on to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me.
That's really cool.
You want to set up the next generation for success. You don't want to leave them in a place where, oh, I've got this shitty whiskey and what do I do with it?
If only more people thought that way.
Absolutely. That, and like I said, that really resonated with me. And we have to usher in this next generation. And I'm saying that I've only been doing this for 4 years, but that has already been so ingrained in my philosophy that you have to make good whiskey and you have to make quality products for the next generation to live on, for the company to continue.
Well, that's also what you're doing.
Exactly.
Because you've only been at Watershed for 3 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you are putting out products that were distilled and put in barrels before you ever started.
Exactly. I'm working with whiskey that nobody else has worked with since it was barreled. And that's an incredible privilege. I get to decide, like, these guys made it. I get to decide how the world gets to see it.
Absolutely.
And it's super rewarding.
Nate, in your mind with this topic, where are you headed with it?
So
thank you.
You're welcome.
So, when I was first thinking about it, immediately I went to, how does this apply to life? Real world situations.
Yeah.
Our household, just went through some changes this week, some very drastic changes, some unfortunate changes. But the great thing is that many, many years ago, we chose a different lifestyle that allowed us to be able to prepare for something like this. So when life punched us in the face yesterday, yes, took the time, grieved over it, what had happened, let our emotions out, but then you have that sit down conversation and realize, all right, where are we? Like,
sure.
We're actually in an okay spot. Like, we're not panicking. We're not freaking out. The trip that we have planned next week, that's still on, because that's been planned for, paid for, budgeted for. Like, we're good.
How's June looking?
So, June's still fine.
Cool.
We're still on for June.
Cool.
No.
What's happening in June, Steve?
Nothing.
But no, like, so
Nothing big.
Nothing at all, right?
So
just another month.
So last week when I took my car into the shop and I had to have some work done to it, I hate car repairs.
No one likes them.
No one likes that.
Except for
but
garages and mechanics.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But when I was younger, if I had an issue with a car, that stressed me the fuck out. Like, I was in panic mode. How am I going to pay for this? And, what am I going to do? And it just a bunch of stress. And, I took my car in last week and they're like, all right, this is how much it's going to cost to fix it. And I'm like, well, fuck, that sucks. But then I was like, all right, well, I'm in a position where I can just go ahead and have it fixed.
Get it done.
I've gotten to the point now in my life, or our life, where when car issues happen, like, the biggest inconvenience is on my day off, I got to take the car into the shop, and
that's good.
And like, okay, I got a loaner car for a day or two or something like that.
That's lucky to have that.
Yeah. So it's now that inconvenience of schedule and not having my own car. I can sit there and just go ahead and write.
To your point, that's establishing the groundwork for adverse times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one point with my old car. I joked with someone and I was like, yeah, I had to take my car in. It has to have an axle replaced. And like, oh, that must suck. And I was like, you realize I could throw a grenade into that car and just, if that car was still available, brand new, I could just buy it again. Like, I could just do that. Like I never
Yeah.
thought in my life I would be in that type of position.
Yeah.
But we've made steps in our lives to where when stuff like that happens, the biggest pain in the ass is just writing the check. Like that's it. Like if something
Yeah.
happens like that, something pops up, you just deal with it, you pay for it, and then you move on.
We keep moving
So,
forward, right? I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
it
I mean,
just-
like that's the thing.
it just lowered the amount of stress and anxiety that it put on me because we've done the groundwork for so many years to be able to put ourselves in that position. So
still sucks.
to
I'll say that it still sucks.
it still sucks. So to stop,
That's the money that you have saved up, right? And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I have this, and like I hate
Yeah.
touching that stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because it's like
so to stop dancing around the subject,
Mhm.
yesterday my wife lost her job, and that sucks. And I know she feels bad about it. It sucks, but thankfully, because of the work that she has put in and how we have budgeted money over the years, like we're still okay.
It's good.
Like we can still pay all of our expenses, for at least, and I'm still working.
Yep.
So, I mean, we can still cover all of our bills. I thought back to the last time, 11 years ago when I lost my
Mhm.
job, like that sucked. That put us in a bind. That, put us behind an 8 ball, and, we were stressing out about that. And
There's always going to be the stress, but I've
Yeah.
heard you even say it as long as I've known you, that it's typically the flip side of that is that when you're stressing out, that I've always heard that Jess is the one that has been like, we got this. You know what
Yes.
I mean, it is the preparation for
oh
it.
yeah,
So
And
it's
I
still
give
as
her
terrible.
so much credit
Sure.
because of the planning and the way we've done things, and both of us have been completely on board with that. We don't live extravagant lifestyles. We live within our means. It's like, cool. We're just going to ride with it. We're going to deal with it. We'll get back to where we were. Like we're okay.
Yeah.
Now we just need to worry about, okay, what's next? That's it.
Absolutely.
We're looking at the next instead of like, all right, where do we go from here? Cool. But the now is taken care of.
Yeah.
15 years ago, that wasn't the situation.
No, I get it.
But we've done the groundwork in the springtime, so that way, come summer, come fall, like, all right, now we get the
Yeah.
benefits. This is that kind of time period where
Put the
we're
work in.
seeing the benefits of all that work that was put in over the years before. Now we're seeing the benefits of that.
Yeah, I think it's preparing for the hurdles. It sucks, it's never good news, and unfortunately, it's happens all the time. I remember, I lost my job, and I did panic, and you look at if something were to happen to anything, whether it be job related, if you go through something, in your personal life, shit, you're not feeling right, you go get that. I mean, not to be super negative, but it's like you get that bad prognosis from a doctor or whatever it is. It's there's a lot of negatives that you can try to keep positive, but it is I think with spring being here, and to what you're talking about, Nate, taking it, scaling it back a little bit, is it's not as easy as the first mow, but I mean it is, I'm gonna really kind of like trivialize this, is that making sure that you have the right lawn equipment, so when you're not behind the 8 ball, when the grass starts growing, you're like, oh shit, I should probably get a lawnmower. Oh shit, you know what I mean? Like spring cleaning, I was like, oh, I should probably get some cleaning supplies. So, or like whatever it might be. Yeah, you get to that point, and Nate, not everyone's at that point, and even if you are at that point, it always blows my mind when people that have gone through a similar experience that you're talking about, that I will only say this, and then I'll move on from what you're talking about, is that what has always blown my mind is when people that will go through a situation like you guys are going through, is that they're like, oh, we're fine. Well, you're looking, well, not yet. I'm like, day one, day one. I'm like, I am not like, oh, this is an opportunity to take a little time off. Like, well, good for you if that's the case. But I, you know, you were talking to me last week about how you had credit card debt. I don't know where you're at right now, but like, I don't think this is vacation time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it is something that, you know, as the seasons change and things come in life, is that you do have to keep moving forward. And I think this adversity brings a lot of growth if you handle it the right way.
Absolutely.
I will say that.
It shows your true character and how you handle adversity. Are you that person that's like, yeah, I'm gonna take some time off, like this is an extended vacation, or okay, what's next? That's a hard step, and like I said, that takes a lot of courage, integrity, character, and it's admirable.
Well, I remember, you know, a couple of years ago when my sister lost her job, she had a severance coming, and you know, I was talking to her about it. It's like, hey, look, you know, you've got a severance that's, you know, 3.5 months or something like that. If you get a job a month from now, that means you got a 2.5 month signing bonus. That's the way I framed it for her.
On this topic, but I've heard of people like, no, I want to like wait because if I get a new job, the severance gets cut off or whatever it might be. I'm like, okay.
What if you don't?
Right.
Like,
I didn't know you could time this shit out that way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if that's the case, man. That would have been great, you know? Jesus Christ.
I want your financial advisor.
Yeah, no kidding. Probably don't if that's what they're telling you.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't want that.
But I mean, that the day, I mean, 11 years ago, when the day I got let go, that same day I was applying for everything I could. But that's because we were in a very different situation.
No, that's technically who you are. I mean,
and
that's who you are now.
Yeah. And Jess is the same way. I mean, she's still doing everything she can. You know, she's still looking immediately today. But I mean, like yesterday, it was more of, all right, it sucks. Go ahead and deal with it. Process it. It sucked that I was at work that whole day.
Oh, 100%.
Because, you know, the last time something like this happened, I got the day off. So, but and it's like, just go ahead and deal with it. And then tomorrow we'll figure it out. Like there's not an immediate stress and panic. But it's again, spring is here. Like we've done the groundwork. We've laid the foundation. We've done the work. It's like, all right, let's just go.
Yeah.
Just deal with it. We're okay.
Yeah, I look at it. I mean, and let's kind of, again, scale it back here. So, like, what do you do? You know, spring being here, we've done these over the last, 6.5, 7, well, I don't know how I'm doing this, but we've had these seasonal kind of topics. And it's always something for me is like, what are you doing year round so that you're prepared for the season changing? I mean, that is, you know, something that, you know, Ryan, you know, talking about, you know, you guys with Watershed, you're constantly grinding. You're constantly looking forward. Ahead, it's forecasting, it's to be prepared for adversity, and even to take it, even again, scale it back even more. Satan, it's just status quo, right? I mean, things are going well, you know. Absolutely. But it's like you can't necessarily rest on your laurels. You can't, you can't just coast. You know, you kind of have to keep moving all year round. The nice thing about spring, let's put a positive spin on this, is that, man, you talk about seasonal depression with winter and all that stuff. And it's like, even, what was it, yesterday being windy and gray. And it's like just the mood of people.
Oh, God.
You know, and, you know, in the shop at work, you know, people were just not coming in. And people that were coming in, it was kind of like half and half. Some people were in good moods and the other half were in bad moods. And all of a sudden, you know, today the sun was out a little bit, still fucking 50 degrees. You know, it's not even spring weather yet. And, you know, it was 70 degrees, 20 degrees warmer 2 days ago, whatever it was. And people were still a little happier because it's sunny.
Yeah.
You see that little glimpse of we're turning the corner. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people will, and myself included, you almost are hanging on to, it's coming around. It's coming around the corner. You know what I mean? But with that, I think you want to really prepare for it. I'm going to give my, which, you know, Ray's not listening tonight, but I mean, he always hates when I say this, but it's like, I love posting that meme, you know, where was the one I post about Denzel Washington, and you've seen it before, about how a reminder, like in the wintertime, that people look at you in the summer that didn't prepare for, you know, the summer and the winter, you know, like
you get the people that sit there and like, oh my gosh, like, you know, you've got your summer bod, you got a, you know, you're in shape, you've got a 6-pack,
yeah,
and I'm still working off my winter weight. And,
man, I tell you, in my 40s, I got a beach wedding coming up, and I'm just like, well, fuck.
This is where we're at.
Yeah. Glad I met Kristen when I did, based on how our lives, you know, intertwined. But man, I would have been much more comfortable at 35 on the beach wedding. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm the groom. What of it? Oh, I have to wear a shirt for the wedding. All right, whatever. You know. Yeah, Kristen says summer bodies are made in the winter.
You put the effort in.
It's all year round, man.
You got the people that work out during the winter times. That way they look good in the summer. And you got the people that in the wintertime, they're sitting there, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, they're stuffing their face. They're eating all the cookies, all the sugar and everything.
I got to get better again.
They put on 20 pounds and then summer comes along and they're like, man, I don't look good in a bikini yet. It's like, well, you know, if you'd have done the work during the off time.
Yeah, spring and summer, it's like hoodies cover a lot, you know, during the winter. You know what I mean? Like you can layer up and you're like,
time is when my body shines, baby.
Yes, yeah, no, Kristen, you're right. Summer bodies are made in the winter. That's essentially it. I always go back to, not to stay on the health and the fitness thing, but I think it's valid. Same thing we're talking about, like even just like more trivial things, even though it's real life, you know, as far as like yard work and stuff like that. I mean, you have to do your fall finishing. I like that.
Yeah.
You have to do the fall finishing as far as if you seeded where you needed to and things like that, so that over the winter, you know, you do it at certain times of the year, so that spring comes around, you don't necessarily fix everything once it gets warm.
Totally.
This is a project. You know, I had a friend that was, and forgive me for doing these kind of tangent metaphors, but you know, he's in a neighborhood actually like this. It sounds like he moved to Indianapolis for his family, and right now they're renting a house, and they're renting like a 3,000 square foot house. What blew my mind is that half the houses, he said, are all rentals owned by the same company, and so the HOA is like finding them. You have a dandelion, it's $65. If you have this, it's another like $100, and they're doing all this stuff. And he's like, I'm trying. The people that were in this house before me were evicted. Like, this is not my problem, but it is, you know. He's like, I just moved in like 6 months ago before all this came. And so now he's like getting fined for the people's past of this property. And he's trying to do all his best. And it's just one of those things that this is another reminder that it's always working. You know what I mean? Like it's always, you don't know if you're going to be there next spring, but I mean, I tell you what, I mean, that is a fact of a metaphor. You don't know if you're going to be around next spring. We never know what life's going to throw at you, but it's like, if you do your best to kind of take care of yourself, take care of your life, take care of your job and all that stuff, you don't know if life's going to throw you a curveball. But the more you're prepped and you're constantly grinding all year round, and it's okay to take a little break here and there, but it's got to be short, right? You know what I mean? Like we're talking about the eating thing. We're talking about, you know, it's like everyone kind of gets in a rut with their job or their relationships and stuff like that. But it's like you can't stay in that rut too long.
You don't necessarily want to burn yourself out.
You don't want to burn yourself out either. Those crash diets, those crash lifestyle changes. You know, I'm following this influencer that's telling me I need to, you know, take 10,000 steps a day. It's like, that would be nice if you have the time, you know what I mean? But let's like get out and walk. Let's start with that. Let's go do these things to keep, you know, your life and your mind stimulated, you know, your body stimulated. All these fad things, you know, it's like, I think that's, for me, when you talk about like spring is here, it's like this for so many people. It's like this, oh, now I'm back. It's like, where the fuck were you?
Yeah. Absolutely. You know? Like you just said earlier, the grind never stops. You know, if you're not constantly pushing to, you know, push the envelope, you know, keep that grind going, you're falling behind.
You are.
You really are. And to kind of relate it back to whiskey, because that's what I'm used to.
Yep.
Kind of what you were just talking about earlier, that like with the fall finishing series, you know, I very easily could be, you know, October, November, December comes around and all these lotteries and these special releases are coming around. It's really easy to just sit back and be like, yeah, this has been really successful.
We crushed it. Yeah, we crushed it, man.
But in reality, I'm already planning, and sometimes the barrels are already ready for the next season.
It has to be.
You have to keep grinding. You have to keep grinding. You have to keep wanting that drive to improve.
Well, I mean, you told us before we started, like some of those fall finishing series. I mean, here we are, spring broke less than a month ago, technically on the calendar. We're still waiting for the weather to catch up.
Next
But
week.
Yeah, but for that fall finishing series, you've already put the whiskey into those finishing barrels
Absolutely.
for the fall.
Yeah.
Like you're already planning for that. And another thing we talked about before the show started, you know, we talked about some of the big whiskey companies out there that at the beginning of this year reduced staff and, you know, stuff like, and personnel and stuff like that. And you know, I talked about it, and I've talked about it with customers. Like the last couple of years with the whiskey market in the US, it's gone down the last 2 years, but the level it's at is where it was projected to be 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's still on that track. The issue I think some of these companies had was when you had that whiskey boom in 2020, a lot of them were like, oh, we got to start expanding. We got to start putting more barrels away. We got to start, you know, hiring more people, doing all this stuff. And now, you know, 5 years later, that stuff has settled back down to the normal levels of where it was going.
Yeah.
That little bubble is burst. And so now they're like, well, shit, now we have too many people. You know, I'm wondering what's going to happen, because in the whiskey industry, like you alluded to, Ryan, you know, you're putting barrels away that aren't going to come to fruition until years later. So you have companies that 5 years ago start putting away more product, or even 4 years ago, they start putting away more and more product. And then now there's less demand. So when those products finally come out, is there going to be a market? Are people going to be buying them to the rate that they put them away? So that's why I think some of these products, we're already seeing it where some of these products that were allocated are now readily available, at least in the state of Ohio, which is, again, as I explained to customers, the 4th largest bourbon market in the country.
No big deal.
Yeah. But it's like, you know, so some of these staples some of these products are now becoming staples because there's so much available.
Which was the original plan. Let's
Yes.
go back to that. That was the original plan, right? So like, let's talk about the big boy, right? Like this is the allocation secondary market giant is Buffalo Trace. They responded accordingly, just like a lot of people did. I don't know if it was necessarily the right thing. We talked about it a little bit when you kind of like, oh, this is going to be the new trend. It's not. You know, trends go up and down, and this last one in the last 4 or 5 years was a prime example of there was a boom. You can't sit on it and say, well, I'm not going to respond to it, but at the same time, you just don't know. So you hopefully financially can, if it plateaus or goes down, you're okay, right?
Yeah.
I will look at it, you know, from that standpoint, with like, just while we're on this note here, I know typically in part 2 we talk about other things, but you know, with the bourbon boom, no one cares what I have to think, you know, or say, but it's they responded the best they could.
Yeah.
I know there were plenty of people out there that were looking at it as, we don't know how long this boom's going to go, but we are going to respond to it. They're not dumb people. I think there are some people that are probably making decisions that are above their capacity in any business. And I think the bourbon world is not any different with that. And they might have overextended themselves.
Yeah.
You know, when you did these $1 billion expansions on the tours and stuff like that, what if tours slow down? Are we doing this in a way that we can continue to expand how do we become the Maker's Marks? You know, I mean, the Woodfords and stuff like that. Let's expand, but let's not count on the fact that all these unique projects that we're going to do that are booming right now, or the secondary market, they all knew that was driving a lot of this stuff. So once it starts showing up on the shelves, are people going to still buy it? Are people going to be able to tour this area? Are they going to want to come down? Or do we stay as exclusive as our secondary bottles are selling for. And it's like, yeah, you can come tour us, but you had to book it 2 months out.
Yeah.
There's no right answer to it, and no one can predict the future. But I mean, you look at it as I think that you try to diversify the best you can. And I think Watershed, what you guys are doing with the expansion there on a smaller scale, but it's almost proportionally equivalent, in my opinion, because the space that you guys are now occupying has, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's big.
Yeah.
So it's like if things were to slow down with your stuff, all right, can we source stuff like other people are doing where we're now sourcing?
Yeah.
You know, can we become that kind of MGP on a smaller scale? Can we do this? All right, do we expand our restaurant? You know, it's like you have the footprint, but you can actually pivot a little bit.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that everyone can do that. And just to before, I feel like you might want to respond, Ryan. It's same thing in life and in your work. It's like, do you just try to just really lock in on like a specific thing that you're doing for your work, for your health, your all this stuff? Are you doing that kind of I look at it as the same thing as like a crash diet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I'm all in. You're like, I'm glad you are, but I can tell you this right now. There's a great chance that you will not be that specific long term. Okay. So if that doesn't be the rest of your life or the rest of your career, but rest of whatever, are you able to pivot?
Yeah. I tell you what, I love this topic tonight.
Good.
I love talking about this stuff. So from a whiskey perspective specifically, people have been talking about the boom for years now. Like, oh, the bubble's going to pop. It's going to crash. It's going to do this and that. With all of these cutbacks and all of these layoffs that you are seeing, there are still brands that experience growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's not everyone is feeling this. It's all preparation. It's looking at the market, pivoting, like you just said, Steve. It's just preparing for the future. And talking about Watershed, I mentioned it earlier. We've put away more rye whiskey this year than we ever have.
Perfect.
It's all about pivoting. It's all about grinding. You know, what's next? It's not just riding, like you said, that fad of this is the boom. This is what's popular. Let's go all in. You have to stay versatile. You have to stay on the grind. You have to prepare for the future. And I feel like that's something we specifically have done really well. And we're really excited for the future. Whereas other guys, you know, Nate, like you just said, they're laying people off. Like there's bottling lines out there that aren't running anymore. There's people without jobs. There's cooperages that are closing. You know, I think it's all about how you prepare, how you look at the market, and how you want to grow.
Well, and to that, one of the things that I think has led to some of the shrinkage for some of these bigger companies in the whiskey world is I think some consumers have gotten tired of the chase. They don't, because I get a lot of people that come into Carfagnos and they're looking for a lot of those allocated products. And I'm like, well, that's something that if you want it, you got to be in line at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, well, I don't want to do that. Like, okay, if you don't want to do that, I recommend finding something that's readily available on the shelf.
Good advice.
So
There's so much great whiskey out there.
Oh gosh.
Great
So I think in my mind, I think some of the reason why some of these bigger brands have had a decrease in sale. So it's interesting. US whiskey, the sales have gone up, but some of these big brands, their sales have gone down. I think part of that is because people are finding other products. So when people come in and they're looking for certain things, I, as a retailer, try and put them onto something else that relates to what it is they came in looking for. So sales are up total, but that's, I think, partially because people are finding other products. So you have some of these smaller brands, their sales have gone up. Some of the big boys have gone down, but the market as a whole has gone up.
Absolutely.
So it's one of those
It
where
begs the question, do people actually want to drink it? You know what I mean? Or are they just doing it to make money off of it?
Yeah, absolutely. There are several customers where I've asked them that question. I've called them out on that before. Like, are you looking for that to like put in your bar and just sit on, or are you looking for something to drink right now? No, I ran out of this. I'm looking for something to to be able to pour. Cool. Let me show you some other options that are on the shelf. And almost every single product that these people ask for, when they're looking for it, I have a replacement already in my mind
I tell you,
to be able to put them onto.
Tell you what, one of my
No, go ahead. No, you're fine.
One of my favorite things to do at home with my personal collection is I'll bring bottles, even with guys, just some of my coworkers. I'll bring bottles in and have them taste things blind.
Mm-hmm.
I love to sample people blind on whiskey.
Do you throw in your own products?
Sometimes, but no,
that was really good, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean that's really good. Yeah,
that was a good plug. Yeah,
yeah.
But I think a lot of it
get
is people don't know what they like until you put them on something that they may like, and then you have them taste it and like, oh, I didn't like that. Okay, you didn't like that. Try this. For example, I had a friend come over one time. We were down. My basement is we call it the whiskey room. that was something my wife gave me the okay to do.
She knew what she was getting
off
into.
And running on that. But yeah, I'll have people over and I'll give them a pour of whatever without telling them. Buffalo Trace, just their core product, and they say they don't like it. I'll give them something else. Specific example, I tasted them on Texas whiskey.
Oh,
It was very much different, and they loved it.
Which any brand particular, like Still Austin?
It was Iron Root Republic.
Okay,
so they're doing a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, tasted them on that, and they absolutely loved it. And they said, "How old is this? 6, 7, 8 years old?" I said, "Bud, this is 3-year-old whiskey."
Oh yeah, we did that when we had Still Austin
whiskey
on.
So it's not always about the age. It's not about what distillery it's coming from. It's does it taste good and do you like it? And I think you find what you like, and that's absolutely what the market should be.
That's
but so many people are chasing these Buffalo Trace unicorns and whatnot. Like they just don't really know what is out there.
So I'm going to take that as a direct correlation to let's take several steps back, and the things that other people are doing and the influencing and people that have certain lifestyles, jobs, or whatever it might be. And it's like, do you want to do that? Like, you see someone that's successful or has a successful relationship, you know what I mean? Like, that's had Nate been happily married for more years than
15
more years than either of us at the table.
Just a few.
But it's interesting when I had these conversations with people where they're like, oh man, I want that. And it's like, so let me tell you what that is. You know what I mean? And even now I can do it personally, right? It's like, oh, like you work in a cigar shop. And I mean, to a lot of people, this is not like the most like attractive thing. We're in a cigar shop and it's like, oh, like now, especially that we moved in this house and Kristen and I are happy and, like we're having this great life and you're like, I want that in life. Like, let me walk you through how we got here.
It's not easy.
That's the point, right? It's like, so some of the most successful people that I know that I've looked up to, whether it be their marriage and family life or their career or whatever, you actually have an honest conversation with those people. It is very rare, almost non-existent, that are like, yeah, just kept going well.
Yeah.
Just
easy absolutely.
Street. No, it's like, oh, we were split up several times. I got fired from this. I had a health scare. I had this. I had a heart attack. I lost my best friend. I did all like, and you're just like, but it looks so good now. And you're like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's the adversity. It's the growth. It's everything else. And it's like that. What I was getting like from like the blind taste testing, it's people like, this is what I want. This is the correlation. I want a 10-year watershed. I want this. I don't drink underneath this proof. I don't drink. It's all these like these, I guess, like parameters that don't really matter.
Almost limitations.
Like, oh, you like how that tastes? Let's go down that road. You like how this career is going? Like, you like where you're at, but you want to get there? Like, great. You're happy with this person in your life, like friendship or romantic, whatever. Do that. Like, focus on that. This is what's good for you.
Exactly.
Because what's good for someone else, not like you talk to them and it's like, well, tell me about the significant other that's in your life. Tell me about your day-to-day in your job, because you're driving around this nice car, you have this nice house, you do all this stuff, and it's like, tell me about your day-to-day. And you're like, all right, here you go. And you're like, that sounds horrible.
Yeah. So
to some people, it's like, that's not for you. It's like, good. Now you know what you don't want to do. Now you can have success doing something that you may enjoy your day-to-day, so that you don't necessarily, and this is talking to like, younger people or people that are in different stages in life, you don't necessarily have to go through the steps that I went through to make this successful. Learn from my mistakes, whether it be spending too much money on whiskey, on the wrong whiskeys, spending too much money on the wrong cigars. Like, figure it out as you go along, because that's what I did. And unfortunately, I didn't have, and I'm not talking about me, but like the person you're talking to, I didn't have someone that was able to openly express what I went through. And I'm not going to tell you that you can't necessarily take steps to the left, steps to the right, steps backwards, and have these things happen. But it's like, it's how you handle that.
Totally.
But I mean, that's like, I'm sorry, that's my brain works that way. When you're telling me about these blind taste testings and stuff like that, it's like, this is life.
Yeah.
This is like, you're chasing a dream that doesn't necessarily belong to you. And if you chase that dream, you will be chasing disappointment your entire life, because you don't like the day-to-day that brings you to the point that I got. I didn't like the day-to-day that got me to this point. You know what I mean? I love where I'm at. Now I am talking about, I love where I'm at, but if I could have done all of that and been right now today without the bad things, that would have been fucking great.
Oh yeah.
But you can't change that. And in that, I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't gone through the things that I had gone through.
Yeah.
Right.
So I remember many years ago. So my dad's been retired now for over a decade. He worked at UPS for over 30 years. And I remember he would tell me, so he was a package truck driver, making deliveries to businesses and stuff like that. And he had a customer go, oh, it must be great being a UPS driver. And the only reason they mentioned it was, you guys get 6 weeks vacation a year.
Sounds great.
And my dad goes, yeah, well, I started when I was 18. I worked as a loader part-time for 6 years, then became a driver, and then worked as a driver for over 20 years before I got to that point. So if you want to, yeah, go sign up for UPS, do 6 years in the warehouse, and then become a driver. And then 20 years later, you'll get 6 weeks.
And you have to wear brown for 30, 40 years.
And they said,
do you look good in brown?
Side note,
Well,
those uniforms are awful.
Hold on.
They're distinguished and they're.
I mean,
There was a poll done a couple decades ago, but there was a poll done as to what profession has the best looking uniforms. UPS driver came in second.
No way.
No, I want to see the population, the demographics of who was polled on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
They were mainly.
If there were lonely housewives and UPS workers, that's it. I get it.
They polled a lot of women.
Jesus.
I apologize to any UPS drivers that maybe.
I don't.
Number 2 was UPS driver.
This isn't a personal attack.
What was number 1?
Firefighter.
Well, yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
But no,
there's a mustache.
I think
there's a mustache requirement.
that also fits in the demographics that I
point.
was talking about. Lonely housewives. And,
my dad sat there and goes, no, you don't realize like what I've had to do for the last 20 years to be able to get to this point. Like, and they're like, no, I don't want to go through that. I'm like, oh, so you want to start, so you don't want to go through all the struggles.
no, I won't. You have right now.
You just, yeah, exactly. I want to be where you're at now, just without the struggle. Good luck.
That's
Like
unrealistic.
people,
honestly.
and honestly, I've gotten that before. When people sit there and they're like, "Man, how long you been married?" There are some regulars at the cigar shop. How long you been married? I've been married 15 years. Like, damn, that's a long time. Like, it must be great. I'm like, you have no idea some of the
It is
struggle.
great.
It is great.
great.
It's great now.
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
Gotcha. Jesus Christ.
hold on. Honestly,
You
like,
have no idea. It's been miserable.
No.
Mate.
So this is something that we talked about when Spencer was on recently.
Yeah.
So
Shout out to Spencer,
because
Jennifer.
Spencer just got married a few months ago.
I haven't told you.
Congratulations
Did I
to
tell you
him.
news?
And I know they're expecting.
Leo Gavin is now in the NICU. Go on.
Okay. Thanks for that plot twist. But no, like I tell people, like,
Everyone's healthy.
good. That's good.
That's important.
But no, it's like, yeah, like we've made it this long. Like, that's absolutely great. But like, there were definitely some years where there were some struggles. Whether it was just between the two of us relationship wise, or there were outside factors, with careers and job loss, job gain, stuff like that. Like, there were a lot of struggles, but some of those struggles are what made us a better couple, 10 years later. And I mentioned it with Spencer kind of off the air. But no, there are some things in our marriage, 15 years later, where there have been some positive changes that, like, things were going okay, but now because of some change, like, now things are going better. But 15 years ago, those things weren't necessarily there. 10 years ago, those things weren't there. 5 years ago, those things weren't there. But 15 years ago, 10 years ago, like, we laid the groundwork and the foundation. We put in the work then. So that way, now when people look at us like, oh, you've been married 15 years, like, that's fantastic. Like, yeah, it is.
That's the
If you want that, like, yeah, it must be nice.
Yeah,
Exactly.
must be
Like,
nice.
must be nice to have 6 weeks of vacation. Cool. You want to do all this shit for 20 years? No. Well, then don't sit there and want what I have without putting in the work.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many people out there that want the shortcut to the goal.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, you don't realize the work you have to put into it.
Absolutely.
Like,
That's as simple as, and again, going back to the beginning of this, must be nice to have a nice lawn. You're like, you have no idea what it takes to
Yeah.
have a nice lawn.
The one I get a lot is, must be nice to sip whiskey all day. Well,
Yes.
it is. Yes, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of work that goes into that. I mean, it's nice to
Steve and I both get that.
It's nice to sip whiskey when you want to. It's a completely different beast when you are sipping hundreds of samples a day, every day, because you have to.
Oh, yeah.
Any
It's a
job's
lot of-
going to be a job. It's everyone says, oh, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. It's like, until you're
Bullshit.
successful at it and
Exactly.
you do it long enough, it's still a job.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
definitely better than jobs that you don't like what you're doing, but
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, Steve gets that. We both get that working in the cigar shop. I work there on Friday nights and Sundays, and a lot of times more on Sundays. I get that person that comes in and it's like, man, you must have a great life. You get to just be in here, smoke cigars all day. And like, yeah, you want the rest of my life?
Right.
Well, here, let me tell you what the rest of my life looks like.
bad, man.
Yeah, no, but then even at my main job, someone will come in, a customer will come in when the wine rep is there and the wine rep is tasting us on wines and stuff. Like, must be nice to be able to drink on the job. Like, that's in my job description. Like, I have to drink on the job because
You're not selling anyone the opposite of that.
because like I have to taste this stuff in order to be able to talk to customers. I still have to work retail. I still get those, in this. I remember my very first week at Carfagna's. Being in the cigar industry, you get asked for Cuban cigars
Sure.
fairly regularly, and it gets annoying at a point because it's been a thing for over 60 years. No, we can't get Cuban cigars. Why don't you know that by now? Like, because it's been a thing for so long. And people sit there and they look at me on the job. I'm like, oh, you get to taste wine. Like that must be great. And like, yeah, but I have to do that in order to be able to do my job.
Right.
Like
Just say yes.
If I knew nothing about any of the wines on the shelf and a customer came in asking me for a recommendation and I point that customer would look at me and go, if they knew I knew nothing about wine, that customer sit there and go, well, what the fuck do you know? But if I sit there and I say, no, I've had so many of these products. Like I've tasted all this stuff. I've read on all this stuff.
Sure.
I've educated myself on all this stuff. Like I could go in today and pass an exam to be able to get this certification.
You should.
I've done all of that work. Then they're like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I just want the rewards.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of people that probably be like, I'd love to drink wine to do that.
But they're probably not good
Well,
at giving wine recommendations.
Maybe not.
Or I sit there
They
and I
haven't done the
go,
work.
It's exactly.
They haven't done the
It's
work.
all about putting in the time.
or I sit there and go, you
All
want to
the
work
time.
for my boss?
I just say I've had worse gigs, and this is the best I've had ever. You know, that's it. That's it. Same thing with the podcast. People are like, "Oh, I want to do a podcast." Like,
Well,
no one has to listen to it. You can do a podcast in your garage
Sure.
like we do. Like, you know, like
Absolutely.
we're fortunate that we have a little bit of a following, local and a little outside of that. We're not the big guys. I look at, you know, some like cigar shops that do some stuff. Like, there's a cigar shop that's really hot right now in the Southwest Ohio. And shout out to Creekside Cigars. They're not listening, but like I saw they just started doing some YouTube videos and they're like doing full production. They're like doing like multiple cameras and all that shit. And it's like they did like the first video like 4 or 6 weeks ago, and it's got 4,000 views on YouTube. I'm like, good for you, man. Like, I don't know how you have the time to do it, but they're also younger than me, and maybe they like can do it through AI. I don't know. Like, good.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
I was thinking about
I
that
don't know
earlier. Like,
how it affects their business. Hopefully it's in a good way, and you have to capitalize it on that. But it's like, that's great that you do all that. But
I think about that. Like, I was thinking about it earlier during this discussion. Like, if this podcast ever blew up and just went big, went national, and we started having thousands upon thousands and maybe even millions of views, people would sit there and go, oh, it must be nice to do a podcast where you smoke cigars and drink whiskey all the time. It's like, you don't realize.
just put it the banner, share, like, and comment, review.
Like this. Yeah. This is something
Tell all
that's
your friends.
like, this is something that, you know, we've been grinding at and just doing for 7 years as of now. And, you know, if it ever got to the point where it blew up that big to where
Probably tired of it and cut it off.
but no, people
Did it.
People sit there and go, oh, must be nice to be able to make
adventure?
yeah,
Yeah.
must be
You
nice
make
to,
any money off it? No. Oh,
Yeah.
shit. I forgot to do something.
yeah,
God damn. I
Exactly.
got some complimentary bottles from people.
yeah. Well, that's a plus. But no, it's like, yeah, cool. We made it big time, but you didn't see the struggle that went into it in those early years.
man.
You didn't see the fights, the arguments
All right.
between Steve and Jake.
All right.
Like, no, you didn't see all the heart-to-heart conversations that had to place, all the planning and doing the stuff where it's just this.
Read what Sean said there.
Some people are waiting for the perfect time to start, not realizing that starting is the perfect time. That's the thing. Like, if you want to be somewhere, you can't expect it to just happen overnight. You got to do something now. You got to start laying the groundwork. Guess what? Spring is here. Start doing the fucking work.
Get to work.
Like,
Yeah.
start mowing the grass. Start mulching. Start planting seeds. Start, like, no farmer walks out into a field in September and goes, holy shit, I got a field of corn. I got to start harvesting and making some money. No, they work their ass off every day.
Selling
6
farm
months
next
ago.
Yeah.
and like
You're selling to someone else that knows how to run a farm.
Jess.
Wink, wink.
Got to buy a farm.
See, exactly. She could do either.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. Look at that. I don't know. Let's round it out. Closing remarks. I want to thank Ryan for being here, bringing some of this amazing whiskey. The Watershed Rye. Someone asked, I don't know if they're listening. They texted me, how is the Watershed Rye? Listen to part 1. We definitely talked about it a lot. Stay tuned for details from Watershed Distillery on how you can get your hands on a bottle of this. Ryan also brought, can I get one more pour of that uncut, unfiltered? So this is tell everyone what this is and how they can get this or something similar.
Yeah, so this was actually another special project that we did with a lady who's very well known out on the East Coast in Connecticut and the surrounding states around there. Her name's Irene Tan. If you ever, she has a liquor store out in Canterbury, Connecticut. If you ever get a chance to go out there, go to her store. She will treat you right. But anyway, back to the bottle. We did a collaboration together where she was in Columbus for a day. Her and Greg actually connected on a trip they were doing to promote some of our products opening up in Connecticut. And they really connected and they hit it off. And Greg invited her out to the distillery. And so she came out. We decided that we were going to do a blend together that day. So we pulled out a bunch of barrels and tasted through them, and we came up with this blend. So this was the first truly targeted fractional blend that we've done at Watershed. So this batch is a blend of about 24 different barrels.
Wow.
And we pulled a little bit out of this barrel, pulled out some gallons from this barrel, and did a really, truly just about as accurate as it can get, small scale to large scale. So this was a lot of fun. We had a blast that day, tasted a lot of great whiskey. And this is kind of the result of that collaboration with Irene and Whiskey Mentors.
I got to ask one question.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it when it says Whiskey Mentors,
Mm-hmm.
you take out the E in whiskey?
You'll have to ask Irene about that.
So I do know why there's a difference between why some
Probably your location in Connecticut.
She
probably has a lot of Irish and Scotch.
Whiskey with a Y and whiskey with an E, right?
Yep.
So that's a geographical difference. So if you go over to Scotland,
Yep.
I believe they don't use the E.
Correct.
And then whiskey in the United States has the E.
Yep.
It's the same word, means the same thing. It's just a geographical difference in the English translation.
It's like color.
Bonus for people is some of them may realize that with Maker's Mark, they do not use an E, but that's because the original founder of Maker's Mark was Scottish, and they don't use the E, so they still use that as tribute to the original founder.
Correct. Yeah,
nice.
Something unique about Irene is she doesn't just buy bourbon or blend bourbon. She does Scotch. She does rum.
That makes sense then.
She does everything. So if I were to guess, like I said, just as an outside opinion, she's using the Y as encompassing of all different types of whiskey, not just the American versions.
It's good. I like that.
Yeah. Very nice lady. Like I said, if you're
we met her actually briefly at that dinner. Yeah, that's when you were doing it, right?
Lady.
Yeah.
Very knowledgeable about spirits in general. She works with.
I was gonna say this isn't the barrel that Steve and I have a little bottle of.
No.
No.
That's something different. Yeah. But yeah, she's doing a lot of work with her own brand that she's kickstarting. She's worked with a lot of different. She's worked with some distilleries in Colorado. She's working heavily with Crowded Barrel out of Texas.
Wow.
So yeah, she's really on the come up. If you ever taste any of her stuff, it's phenomenal. So I was very fortunate and very privileged.
It's a great bottle. I'm enjoying it. Thank you.
It's probably, I'm going to guess, just because of the work she does, that Connecticut is not a controlled state.
It is not.
So she has the liberty to be able to do those things and do barrel picks and stuff like that. And it's much easier for her to be able to do that. Now, on the flip side, that means if she does a barrel pick, like she's got to buy that barrel. That's a shit ton of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we recently had a group at Carfagna's that did a barrel pick through Carfagna's. So this group that's local bought a barrel from a North American distillery, and it came through, and they had to buy.
That's how it works, man.
They had to buy every single bottle.
That's how it works.
But it was great because literally every single bottle, like they were all in 6-pack cases. They showed up on a pallet separate from our regular delivery, It even included the barrel itself
Nice.
that they picked, and then also a plaque.
Already spoken for.
Oh, they bought it.
That's perfect.
Oh yeah. So literally, it showed up. We called them and like, hey, your barrel showed up, and then an hour later, someone from that group showed up and was like, all right, cool. Here's my card, and bought all the bottles because most of them were already spoken for. But yeah, that's a
great.
hell of a commitment.
Yeah.
All right, and we will talk about possibly someday doing a bourbon and BS watershed barrel. We've kicked it around long enough. I know we're going to work on it.
We'll make that happen.
We'll make it happen. All right, so closing remarks. Right, spring is here. Again, thank you to Watershed for the absolute honor of almost press release breaking the Watershed Rye.
Yeah, just about.
Fantastic bottle.
I hadn't heard anything about it, so I was super excited when I saw that bottle.
I tried to keep it quiet as I could.
I appreciate that because there were people
I was
that
on an Instagram messaging thread, and I was like, "What?" I texted Amy or messaged Amy like the night I was included on. I was like, "What's happening with the messages right now?" Because I was like busy doing something else. I'm like, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a special one, and we're really excited for that lottery to come around next month.
All right, closing remarks. Ryan, you got any here? Spring is here.
Spring is here. You know, like we've been echoing the entire section of part 2. You know, don't be complacent. You know, always be planning for the future. Set yourself up for success, and just keep grinding. You know, the grind never stops. So I feel like I've adopted that in my work, in my life. Like I said, talking about, you know, ushering in the next generation, and especially with whiskey, because it's truly a marathon.
Yeah.
It's years and years of hard work and
Certainly.
planning and dedication, all for somebody else to release your product. Possibly. That's the goal, right? That's the goal is set up the next generation for success. So you just got to keep going, keep grinding, keep working, don't stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Nate?
I think one of the biggest things with this is, and something that I thought about even before the show, if you want to be in a position of success, you've got to start putting in the effort and the work now, because you can't just go from where you are to where you want to be at the snap of a finger. You've got to put in some work to it. The work, when you're doing it, it's gonna sometimes suck. It's gonna seem rough. It's gonna seem not worth it at times. But when you get to the point where that work pays off, then all of a sudden you're gonna look back and say, like, I'm glad we did that. If you prepare for adversity, and then 10 years later, adversity finally rears its head, like, cool, I've prepared for this. I got it. I'm good. I'm in a good position. I can handle it. And then you just deal with it. It takes a lot of the stress off when you put in that groundwork early. One of the things I really loved about this was actually when Ryan was talking earlier on with this about possibly putting away barrels that, may never come to fruition during his time. And there are certain products out there in the spirits industry, like, the Remy 13 or whatever. That's a product that ages for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
So a distiller
Probably
of that,
not going to happen in your time.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who distills that product is not going to be alive when that product is put in a bottle and put on the shelves.
Maybe in the future.
So,
it's like
but there's
advances in modern science and medicine.
yeah, but what they're doing is they're setting the next generation up for success.
Sure.
And I think that's something that pertains particularly to people who maybe have children.
Sure.
Like, you're not just putting in the effort for yourself, you're setting your next generation up for success as well. So sometimes you may not necessarily see the fruits of your labor, but the when those fruits do come to fruition, like the work, the effort's going to be paid for, in multitude
Sure.
coming after. So do what you can for yourself in the future, but also realize you may be setting other people up as well to be successful, especially if you're in a business. You want to do what you can for yourself now, but if something happens to you, or if you take another career path and someone else comes in after you, like you got to make sure that team's in a proper position. If I was working for a company, and this is hypothetical, if I was working for a company and the person who was in charge, so I work for a family business. That family business has for years now put the groundwork in for their next generation to be able to take over that business and see it come to fruition, and then hopefully that generation does the same thing, so that way their generation after them can take it over.
Yeah.
If you have a boss that decides, hey, you know what, I've been doing this for 30 years, it's time for me to retire. Hopefully that department or that business is in a position to where when that person leaves,
That's a good label.
it's that department or that business keeps going. There's no letdown.
Yeah.
There's no sliding back. Everything just keeps going on, and now that new person gets to lay their fingerprint on the business.
Exactly.
And then hopefully they set it up for the next person, and it just becomes cyclical. Like you do what you can for you now, but you also take care of who may come after you.
Absolutely. There's a comment that I scrolled up to earlier as you were saying that, Nate, from Christian Summer, creating his own legacy. And
Christian's a good dude.
That's what
That's
the goal.
That was the comment about you.
Yeah.
When you were talking about how some of this stuff may not come to fruition during your time.
And that's what it's about for me personally is, at the end of my career, if I take a different career path that changed 5 years from now, what's my legacy going to be for these guys coming up?
Christian's someone that I actually worked with 15 years ago. It's really cool to see him actually support the podcast and having that. He and I absolutely clicked, and it's cool to see that. For him to say that, and again, relationships. We worked together years ago. He was actually kind of underneath me in the sales department in my last career, and just a solid dude. Still Facebook friends, obviously, and he supported this. Haven't seen him in years, but just a really cool dude. And I think that's where I want to take what you guys are talking about and add to that is with being the topic spring is here. All the work that you put in, all the things that you prep for the future and all that stuff that you're talking about, no matter if like you're dealing with something right now, this is the time if you're dealing with something right now that I think that you should appreciate the hard work that you put in so that you hopefully are in a good spot. I also think that I don't know what Sean Anderson means by that. These bottles are fuller than they've been in other episodes for that comment there. But I don't enjoy hearing people talk about the just prepping for the future. They're constantly grinding just for the fact that someday they can enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And I think I look at spring is here with everything that we've talked about in this part 2, but I want to add to it that you need to focus on the fact that you can enjoy it. When things are good, enjoy what you have. Enjoy the hard work that you put in so that you're in a position that it shouldn't be a guilty feeling that you are enjoying life. If you feel fortunate that you are enjoying the next season, that because you've put in all this work and it's not, when people say must be nice, they may not realize everything. And most of the time it's not that they don't realize, they don't take consideration for the fact that what has brought you to this point, that things are nice because of all the adversities that you've dealt with, all the long hours that you've put in, all the hard work that you've put in. I think that spring being here, it is a breath of fresh air. It is something that the weather is nicer. We're in the Midwest of the US, and it's like there is a different feel once the sun is out a little bit more, once the weather is a little nicer, and you should allow yourself to enjoy it. It doesn't mean to stop grinding. It doesn't mean to know that there's another winter coming at some point on the horizon. It's the fact that if all you're doing is working for retirement, you don't know. There's too many stories that I've experienced of people that have worked their asses off and they've grinded. They have not necessarily enjoyed life to the point that when I retire, I can enjoy life. And then you hear they're retired, and then within years they've had health issues or they've had life cut short because of that. I'm not saying live to the extremes all the time. I'm saying that if you have the ability to enjoy your current situation while grinding, do that. If all you're doing is working, if all you're doing is, I will enjoy my life at some point, I'm of the opinion that that's the wrong attitude. I think you have to have a little bit of both. And I think that you need to enjoy your life, because if you don't, and all you're doing is working for the future, and you don't allow yourself to enjoy your current situation, you don't enjoy your life, you don't enjoy the people that are in your life, that's where some of the biggest mistakes could happen if you have your head about you the right way, that you're not taking things for granted, you're not going to the extremes, and you're not blowing your savings, you're not just doing like, oh, this is it, day in, day out, paycheck to paycheck. But I encourage and implore everyone to really, really appreciate when you wake up in the morning that what you have is hopefully good. And if it's not at the moment, that's where you keep grinding forward. And maybe you do need to put your nose to the grindstone a little bit more, but there is a balance there that I love where my life's at right now. And there's been several moments in my life, lots of times where it's like, this is not what I wanted for my life. And I can't predict the future. And I don't know what the future will bring for any of us at the table or any of you listening, but I absolutely appreciate where my life is right now. And I hope you guys all do too. And you really count your blessings and you look at the positives. And as long as the positives are outweighing the negatives in your life, this is spring. This is time. This is a new blooming opportunities just around you. And I hope that you guys all look at it as you kind of take a measurement of where you're at in life. And I think that it doesn't necessarily always take a whole lot of effort to see the positives. It takes more effort to actually allow yourself to do that. They're there because it doesn't take much effort at all to look around you for people that are less fortunate than you. And I think that with that being said, I think with the topic being spring is here, is allow yourself to welcome in the warmer weather, welcome in all the things around you growing and blooming, and allow yourself to take that as, I guess, motivation that that's what's happening, hopefully, in your life, no matter where you're at. And I think that the positives, as long as they're outweighing the negatives, you're winning. And
Well said.
yeah, man.
Well said.
Love my life right now, and I hope you guys all do too. Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Cheers.
Oh, it's good. We will see you guys in a couple weeks.